A gentle rain fell, blurring the edges of the world outside. A hand reached out, fingers splayed against a backdrop of swirling water, a silent plea to alter destiny. The scene shifted, revealing a figure poised to strike, a woman held captive, the rain a constant, melancholic witness to the violence. A sigh escaped the lips of the captive man, his face etched with a weariness that transcended the downpour. The woman's eyes, wide and fierce, stared back, reflecting the storm. Her grip tightened on a blade, the metal glinting ominously in the dim light. The deadly dance continued, the woman now lunging, the man collapsing under her attack. He coughed, a spray of blood painting the rain-slicked ground. His hand, now stained crimson, trembled. He gasped for air, a bitter reflection on the futility of his situation. The woman's face, streaked with rain and blood, showed a flicker of something unreadable. Her gaze remained fixed, unwavering, as she stood over her fallen opponent. He, with a look of a last insult, spoke his last word. He then let out a final breath. A message appeared, stark and impersonal, a cruel epitaph. Nullification of engagement. Conditions: murder Deucalion. Back in the mundane world, a man sat at a computer, relief washing over him as he saw the message. Stage clear. Congratulations. You have cleared the stage. He leaned back, the glow of the monitor illuminating his face. Finally, it stopped crushing. The screen displayed a character profile. Deucalion von Greyhenucline, head professor, with a list of skills and attributes. The man, Kim Woojin, a game developer, muttered about the effort he had put into this one character, finally fixing the bug that had plagued the nullification of engagement route. The game company, REW, was a well-known studio in South Korea, a powerhouse that had risen from a region known for its lack of console games. They poured all the investment into the AAA game. The success or failure of this game would determine the company's fate. It was a single-player game, yet boasted advanced AI and named characters whose actions were significantly influenced by player choices. The variety of classes, knight, mage, explorer, demon hunter, noble, king, and more, offered players immense freedom. If it failed, the studio would fall with it. The developer decided he had to check characters one more time. Deucalion was the reason why he had been doing overtime for many months. Deucalion, an intermediate boss and a named villain, was a character riddled with bugs. His death, a crucial event, was often caused by a stab wound from his fiancée. It made sense with all the scheme he makes. His coworker, Woojin, asked, "How's the testing going?" The team leader, Inyu Era, who was also Woojin's ex-girlfriend, was introduced. They had shared 7 years of happiness, and, he felt, helped him become a better person, despite her workaholic tendencies and his own laziness. But they had broken up. He was not able to change. 6 months later, rumors spread that she had found someone new. She commented on his progress and hinted at her new relationship, with a slightly awkward, "It's going well." She urged him to focus on fixing the bugs. She mentioned a need to make changes to the story's end, specifically Deucalion. He was an intermediate boss that should be easily killed. Deucalion's power scaled with the scenario's progression, and the game's difficulty depended on the player's choices. She revealed a startling fact. Deucalion's character model was based on Woojin himself. She added they look alike. She noted with amusement the artist's similarity to him, a fact that shocked Woojin, as he had only met the artist twice. She also commented that they had similar personalities. Inyu Era asked him how he felt with the game experience. He answered that it will do well. He pointed out that her new boyfriend was outside. It was late. She kept telling him to go. Inyu Era then bided him goodbye. As night deepened, the clock ticked. Woojin decided to test Deucalion again. Man, the artist. Woojin decided to modify Deucalion's attributes, adding was kid and average mage, and giving a bit of backstory that he was called a genius as a child but with worse personality. Deucalion was hated by all, a situation Woojin found amusing. He considered adding a less conspicuous attribute he supposed to be based of him, such as comprehension, perhaps a form of empathy. He ended up adding a bunch of random things. He felt ashamed after he was done. He ended up reverting the character before any problems happened. Suddenly, an email alert startled him. It was from a story writer, dated April 6th, 2021, with a message. No. I was just waiting to take a look. Wu Jin, confused, checked the message again. The message continued, mentioning a finished model and a cryptic instruction to take a look outside the window. He looked up. The sky outside was a terrifying spectacle, a swirling vortex of lightning and darkness. He stared, bewildered. The sky was falling. A hole had opened up, unleashing a torrent of chaotic energy. Monstrous forms, skeletal and terrifying, began to emerge. Where am I? A voice, rough and unfamiliar, echoed in his mind. It was a guttural voice, accompanied by a cough. It was a warning. So, child, do not forget. Be wary of him. Always. Decilion is no tame man. He may be hesitant now, but he can do something at any moment. He's just donating his own talents right now. He is a vile villain. A woman's voice yelled for Decilion to get up, her tone sharp and demanding. Decilion's eye opened. The woman, furious, berated him, questioning his humanity. He had a realization. It had been a few days since he had possessed this body. It still felt like a dream. The woman, accusing him of shaming the household, ordered him to get up. She left some paper before she stormed off. After that strange sky appeared, he had woken up in this strange body, in a strange place. A week had already passed. He was in the world of the game he had made. The familiar scenery confirmed it. And he had become the worst character in the game, the one fated to die, no matter what. He became the villain, Decilion. A week had passed since his arrival, the opulent bedroom of Yahello Manor a constant reminder of his new reality. He stretched, still finding the luxurious surroundings surreal. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a reluctant acceptance of his bizarre predicament. He wondered if this was some sort of afterlife, a consequence of the strange lightning strike. Whatever the cause, one thing was clear. He had become Decilion von Grehenuklein, the villain of the game he was developing. Decilion, the middle boss, was the root of all problems, a source of pain for countless characters. He was the villain. A major issue loomed. He had no idea where he was in the game's timeline. All he knew was his current mana level, and even that was useless without knowing its depletion rate. He tested all the game routes thousands of times, but only survived once. He served his purpose as the middle boss. He picked up the documents left by the woman who had berated him earlier, titled Professor Decilion of the Imperial University, Basic Understanding of Magic and Mindset Toward Mana. The woman, Uriel von Grehenuklein, Decilion's half-sister, served as the head of the household in his place. They had a very bad relation. He recalled what she said about the angry woman, concluding she was likely Julie, his fiancée, and that some conflict had occurred between them. The papers were just orders. She was scolding him and calling him professor. It must be today, his first day, he realized. He should have been prepared. However, the paper had all that he needed. He's never given any lectures before, but he needed to gather information. A screen appeared before him, displaying his primary survival goal, become necessary to the game, and a side quest. University lecture, with a reward of plus 0.5 store currency. Because of Uriel, there was many ways for him to die. He knew store currency was important, but what could he possibly lecture on? This body possesses the attribute, comprehension. He remembered when he was a developer, adding it for fun, to give him empathy. It's supposed to only appear in later stage. He used the bathroom and changed the unfamiliar clothes. It felt as though he had always lived as Decilion. The elegant clothes felt surprisingly comfortable. Intimidation, dignity, and aesthetic sense were there. It seemed as if the body was accepting him as its owner. The rigid formality that Kim Woo-jin once found stifling now felt natural. He walked toward the exit, a sense of purpose, though tinged with unease, settling over him. He felt that it was normal, even though his main goal was to get information. He was a noble, a superior member of society. He felt sick after a compliment. He thought about who he was. Kim Woo-jin was a completely regular man from South Korea. Objectively tall and handsome, his ex-girlfriend, described him as a pathetic, lazy bastard. He resolved not to lose himself, to remain vigilant. Stepping into a luxurious car, a novelty for him, he was reminded of a past encounter involving an expensive car, a memory that still stung. He noticed a young man sitting across from him. The young man greeted him enthusiastically, handing him a document. "Professor, good afternoon. Here it is." Deucalion wondered if he was his assistant or secretary. The assistant, surprised by the question, confirmed that he had been serving Deucalion for 3 years, but quickly brushed it off as a joke. Deucalion examined the document, initially assuming it was lecture material, only to find it was a script for him to follow. Given his lack of preparation and Deucalion's prideful, untalented nature, it made sense. The assistant was the one who'd do the work. He complimented him for the work. Perplexed by the unexpected compliment, the assistant urged him to rest until they reached their destination. He felt sick. As they left the manor, Deucalion felt his consciousness merging with the characters. They arrived at the Imperial University, Deucalion's workplace. The lecture was to be held in Rodeo Hall. He overheard students discussing his reputation as a master of spell interpretation and a child prodigy. Entering the hall, Deucalion silenced the room with a glance. He introduced himself. "My name is Deucalion von Greyhenuklein. I have taken this class as the head professor of the university's magic tower." He announced the start of his lecture. Students whispered their admiration for his looks and intelligence. A female figure, hidden in the shadows, clenched her fist, muttering, "Ha! At last we meet. The enemy of my father." She swore, "Deucalion, you trash bastard." The scene fragmented, shattered like glass. 3 years ago, her father had taken his own life. He had dedicated many years to researching spell interpretation, but the shock of having his thesis stolen drove him to despair and ultimately death. The culprit, known as the genius spell interpreter, was none other than Deucalion. The image of Deucalion, once admired, shattered into fragments in her mind. Powerless at the time, she had lost everything after her father's passing: her noble status, her family's house, and their territory, leaving her an orphan. Consumed by grief and rage, she vowed revenge. Through sheer determination, she managed to enter the Empire's Royal University, where Deucalion was a professor. She knew his spell interpretation skill was a sham, a stolen legacy from her father, a truth that fueled her burning resentment. She was fuming, how he ruined her family. His arrogance, his undeserved position, infuriated her. She yearned to expose his lies and bring him down, but knew she needed to bide her time, to prepare for the perfect moment of retribution. Deucalion, meanwhile, began his lecture, commanding silence with a single word. He reintroduced himself as the head professor of the Magic Tower, a monarch mage capable of controlling elements, noting that the monarch was the fourth rank among mages. He launched into an explanation of magic, outlining the 3 attributes and 9 types, concepts presumably familiar to his audience. The attributes, he explained, were the origins, the source of magic, encompassing elements, materials, and objects. The types included summoning, spirits, destruction, support, enchantment, manipulation, ductility, bewitchment, and harmony. To his surprise, Deucalion found the lecture material easier than expected. Even though he was simply reading from a prepared script, he found himself understanding the concepts perfectly, thanks to his comprehension attribute. His presence commanded the students' attention, his elitist demeanor coming across as natural rather than overbearing. He might even possess the qualities of a good teacher, he mused. He continued, explaining how mana usage differed depending on its storage location. In the head for mages, the heart for knights, and the inner core for a blend of internal and external mana. He delivered a concise message about the importance of focus over raw talent, a statement that felt characteristic of Deucalion. He admitted, however, that he himself wasn't extraordinary, his current mana level at 3,375, far below a named mage's primary mana of 30,000. He finished reading. He found the script was strange at the last part. The original him wouldn't say that. Decilian asked if there were any questions. At first, there was silence. Then, a student, the girl from before, stood up, reporting a mysterious spell discovered the previous night in the dormitories, assumed to be the work of the devil. She pointedly questioned Decilian, the genius spell interpreter, about his opinion. He, however, questioned her affiliation with the university's magic tower. When she hesitated, he rebuked her for not following proper etiquette, stating he wouldn't answer questions from a child who lacked basic manners. He acknowledged her question, but stated he had no choice but to dismiss it for the moment. He realized that his comprehension attribute had consumed a significant amount of mana during the lecture, 1,300, a concerning revelation. The students whispered among themselves, amused by the girl's failed attempt to challenge Decilian. She, seething with frustration, recognized her attempt to get noticed had backfired. Ignoring him, she urged him to stop. She persisted, claiming the magic tower was refusing to analyze the spell, calling it a rumor. She used her magic to project the spell. She demanded that he, as a genius spell interpreter, identify the magic used. His mana had drastically decreased. She explained that while the remaining debutantes were analyzing the spell, there had been no progress, requesting a hint from him. Decilian identified it as barrier magic, specifically a bewitchment-type barrier designed to trap. With a final, dismissive gesture, he declared the matter closed. The side quest was completed, and he received his plus 0.5 store currency. In the university's magic tower cafeteria, the girl, identified as Ephorine, furiously ate her food, cursing Decilian. She had intended to expose his fraudulent skills with an unknown spell, but his unexpected knowledge and her own lack of decorum had made her appear foolish. She was only able to say it was a bewitchment spell. She noted how most spells needed parameter, but this did not. She had brought the unknown spell, which was drawn on the dormitory's front door, intending to expose Decilian. Another student approached her. She explained the purpose of the spell was to increase the freshman's research skills, and that it turned out to be a real barrier after recomposing it. Ephorine was confused. The other student complimented her bravery in questioning the scary professor, though admitted they lacked the courage to do so. When she realized the magic was indeed a barrier, and he knew, she was shocked. The student thanked her, promising to include her name in the report. Ephorine, realizing she had inadvertently helped improve Decilian's reputation, despaired. Decilian's lecture topic for the semester, Understanding Elemental Magic, was revealed. She thought, know your enemy and you will win. Decilian's words echoed in her mind, serving as a stark reminder of the challenge ahead. She needed to remain steadfast. She vowed, once again, to expose him. Decilian walked through the university halls, a sense of unease settling upon him. The recent confrontation could have ended badly. He realized that his comprehension attribute had activated involuntarily when he looked at the spell, draining a significant amount of mana just by observing the intricate, tangled lines of the spell circle. He wouldn't have been able to understand, even with double mana. He was saved. He unexpectedly encountered a woman with white hair and light eyes, a character he recognized from his countless hours spent in front of a monitor. It was Julie von Deafraden, his fiancée, and a named character destined to become a pinnacle of knighthood. He felt uncertain on how to deal with this unexpected encounter. He greeted her with a curt, "Fine, let's say." Julie asked if he has been fine, despite the broken promise a week ago. He feigned ignorance, having no memory of any promise. He felt he should just avoid it, but she stopped him, questioning if he was running away, like before. She wouldn't let him go. Decilian, admitting a lapse in memory due to a past fever, inquired about the nature of the promise. She proposed a deal. If he confessed his pretense and arrogance to everyone, she would be with him, even if the world crumbled. However, his distrust was evident. He gave her permission to leave. She looked away. Julie departed, leaving Decilian to reflect on their broken engagement, an event orchestrated for convenience. The union of Decilian, a talented mage, and Julie, a talented knight, was seen as beneficial for both political and bloodline reasons. Nobody opposed to the marriage. It was for the good of the household, even if loveless. However, both families soon realized that Deucalion's supposed talents were non-existent. He had risen to the position of professor through lies, claiming to be a genius of spell analysis. After some incident, the fall of the whiz kid, he produced no accomplishment. The Yucklines and Fried Inns tried to keep it quiet, not wanting their flaws exposed to the public. Julie could tolerate a loveless marriage, but not the deception, a conviction rooted in her knightly code. He had agreed to her terms. She would not keep the deal until the very end. Deucalion continued his walk, this time toward the Magic Tower, the top department in the best university in the game. It held a position akin to Seoul University's medical school in Korea, with the Magic Tower itself comparable to Seoul National University Hospital. He admired the campus's well-maintained beauty, reminiscent of an American college campus. He reflected on how his team had spent countless nights creating this atmosphere, a bittersweet experience to witness in someone else's body. He stumbled, quite literally, bumping into a young man in a hurry. The young man, apologizing profusely, explained he was rushing to see his professor. Deucalion recognized him as the same student who had delivered the lecture script earlier, though he initially mistook him for an ambush. Introducing himself as Alan, not Zorro as Deucalion had mistakenly called him, he presented a list of sponsorships for new mages. The Magic Tower, like research facilities in the real world, required funding for magical development. Professors sponsored new mages they deemed worthy. Examining the list, Deucalion noticed a name shining in gold, a consequence of his own wealthy magnate attribute. This rare attribute, coupled with sharp eyesight, provided him with an intuitive understanding of profitable ventures. The golden name, he surmised, represented a potentially lucrative investment. Several other names also stood out, but one shone the brightest: Ephraim Luna. She was a main-named character, one of the developers in charge of modeling her, had her father killed by him. However, Ephraim had no sponsorships. Everyone was wary of what Deucalion might do if they sponsored her, given that she was his enemy. If he allowed events to unfold as they did in the game, the nullification of engagement would lead to his death. He was trapped by the villain's fate, a destiny where the world wished for his demise, but what didn't kill him made him stronger. Deucalion knew he could die in countless ways: a sword to the heart, a wand to the head, poison in a wine glass, a bomb. To survive, he needed to make a different choice, one the original Deucalion would never have made. He started writing. He instructed Alan to submit the documents and to borrow a few books, intending to begin writing immediately. Alan departed. Deucalion determined that he needed a lot of money to survive, as it could overcome many of the death routes. Investing in a mage was one way to get it, but that was not enough. There are many named characters that will try to kill him. To survive, he needed a way out. He needs to be strong. Deucalion concluded that the best way for him to survive was by becoming stronger. However, Deucalion's talents were merely average, insufficient to counter future threats or the countless deaths that awaited him. He had one advantage: his attributes. While he couldn't control all four elements like some, he possessed potential in manipulating earth and fire. Combining earth, fire, and metal resulted in another attribute: Midas Touch, which consumed the user's mana to unlock a target's potential. His talent in manipulating metal allowed him to wield chi-controlled levitating blades. It was simply telekinesis he knew, common, but not widely used in this world. He could compensate for his lack of power by manipulating metal's properties. To realize all of this, he needed to learn manipulation, starting with object manipulation. He decided to test it. Focusing his will, he attempted to manipulate the book with his mana. The contents of the book, on basic telekinesis, flooded his mind. With newfound understanding, he effortlessly levitated a nearby paintbrush. Now, he had memorized basic telekinesis and did not need to cast it. Something he saw only on the game screen was happening. However, even with high-ranking telekinesis, he knew he wouldn't reach the level he desired. He considered a radical idea: What if he covered his entire body with magic circles? In this world, larger magic circles were stronger. So imprinting them across his body, not just his brain, but his heart and inner core, could amplify his telekinesis, using the comprehend to understand it. Of course, there was a risk of overload and side effects. But the attribute this body, called Iron Man, allowed him to withstand such effects. His current mana level, at 800, was sufficient for a taste. He pushed and tested his new skill. He began, and a searing pain engulfed him, as if his bones were breaking and his muscles tearing. He endured, refusing to yield, a steadfastness befitting a noble. The pain ended, and he felt utterly drained, his mana depleted to a mere 1/3,375. Yet, he had gained something. A magic circle now adorned his shoulder. He estimated it would take 2 weeks to cover his entire body. A month passed since Deucalion's seminar, marking the first day of his lecture at the University Magic Tower. The upperclassmen had told a different story, wondering if the classes were all like this. The students had been tasked with studying in an element-rich area, using signboards. They were left to struggle, questioning the professor's whereabouts. Ephraim, among them, grumbled about Deucalion's irresponsibility. She was suddenly bumped into by another student. Ephraim, startled, demanded to know who it was, only to be further shocked when the student vanished before her eyes. The student, revealed to be Sylvia von Josephine Ilade, reappeared, startling Ephraim again. Ephraim didn't recognize her. Sylvia, using her magic, she built a monument of rock and ice. Ephraim remembered someone from House Ilade was involved in an incident 10 years prior, where the Ilades, fearing her father and her potential, surrounded and threatened their manor. How could Sylvia not remember her? Sylvia started absorbing mana, puzzling Ephraim. Sylvia was taking mana and absorbing the elements. She was absorbing everything Ephraim has been gathering. Ephraim was confused. She remembered. Pretending not to recognize Ephraim, she asked, "Miss Sylvia?" Sylvia, seemingly smug, claimed Ephraim was trying to steal her spotlight after threatening her family and using magic to force her to drop. Ephraim could not make of who she was talking about. Ephraim did not know Sylvia, but know her father, the deceased former noble, a fact that infuriated Sylvia. Another student intervened, witnessing Sylvia's aggressive display. Sylvia, enraged, demanded that Sylvia repeat what she had just said, her magic flaring. Sylvia, enraged by Sylvia's words, unleashes a torrent of green energy, knocking her to the ground. Sylvia is shocked. A sudden explosion of fire and debris erupts. Another student is sent flying, crying out in pain. Amidst the chaos, other students inquire about the injured and the cause of the disturbance. Sylvia, still seething, demands Ephraim to stop her, repeating what she has said before. She accuses her of insulting her father, threatening to end her. Ephraim, however, is distracted by a strange, dark light emanating. This void-like phenomenon alarms the other students, who recognize it as a dangerous and indiscriminate force. It's revealed to be the result of Sylvia's and Ephraim's clashing mana, now sucking in everything around them. Warnings are shouted about an impending explosion, with the metal fragments becoming deadly projectiles. Ephraim, stunned, observes the sudden cessation of the dangerous phenomenon. Deucalion appears, his levitating blades having neutralized the threat, freezing the exploded fragments in place. The students, awestruck by his timely intervention and display of power, are mesmerized by the beauty of his magic, recognizing it as enchantment magic. The frozen metal shards form an intricate structure. Deucalion ends the lecture, ordering everyone except those involved in the commotion to leave. Ephraim, realizing the gravity of the situation and her own vulnerability, dreads the upcoming disciplinary meeting. The scene shifts to an interrogation room, where Deucalion is greeted by Professors Retlon and Reelan, and the chairwoman, Adeline Sigillian Adeline, questions who dare to harm a lady of House Ilade, accusing a lowly one not attending the academy. However, She also acknowledges Deucalion's skillful resolution of the situation, praising his impressive intervention. Deucalion, seeing through her apparent flattery, understands that the disciplinary meeting's outcome is predetermined, favoring Sylvia, the daughter of the influential Elade family, over Ephraim, a commoner. He knows he must manipulate the situation to his advantage, driven by his own survival instincts and the looming villain's fate. The disciplinary meeting between Ephraim and Sylvia officially begins. Professor Reelan admonishes them for the conflict, stating someone could have been hurt if not for Deucalion's intervention. Ephraim, unable to reveal her true motives, remains silent, aware that Deucalion is observing her. She reflects on Sylvia's disdain for her father and her inability to speak freely in front of Deucalion. The professors mock Ephraim's perceived inferiority complex. Ephraim feels humiliated by their disregard. Sylvia claims the argument stemmed from an accidental destruction of her work during class. The professors, biased against Ephraim, accuse her of anger management issues. They call for Ephraim's expulsion, emphasizing the need to punish such behavior. Ephraim, enduring insults and feeling isolated, realizes there is no one to protect her. She bitterly blames Deucalion for her predicament. Adeline appears to have orchestrated the opinions. She asks for Deucalion's opinion as a witness. Addressing Ephraim, Adeline suggests the incident is over, questioning her perceived fault. Sylvia is taken aback as Adeline repeats the question. Deucalion, questioned by Adeline, claims he could have prevented the incident but chose not to, wanting Ephraim to face greater trouble. Ephraim is again confused. Deucalion adds that, in the context of the lecture, it's Ephraim's fault and asks Professor Reelan to take the blame. Reelan naturally refuses, but finds Deucalion's defense, even though he was defending Sylvia. Ephraim is starting to feel the hope of support. Adeline states that no disciplinary actions will be taken, deciding to let the debutante's first clash slide. Ephraim thinks that the head professor would prepare for her explosion. She is surprised by his unexpected and perceptive analysis of events, realizing it's all for the students' benefit. She asks Deucalion questions. Ephraim approaches Deucalion, seeking answers. Deucalion anticipates her questions, specifically about her father's death and the Luna family. Ephraim contemplates the possibility of Deucalion rescinding his verdict to protect himself, even if he did remember her father. She finds the thought of him forgetting her father even more heartbreaking. Deucalion tells her she doesn't need to ask, advising her to focus on her potential instead of dwelling on the past. Ephraim is left. Ephraim, reflecting on Deucalion's actions, realizes he must know about her and her father. She concludes he helped her out of pity, finding some solace in the fact that he remembers. For now, she decides that's enough. The game system acknowledges Deucalion's actions, awarding him currency for overcoming a death variable. The scene shifts to Sylvia and her father, Gilthian von Ludwig Elade, discussing the incident. Gilthian acknowledges Ephraim's talent, but believes she's past her prime. He recalls meeting Ephraim and her father 10 years prior, during the aptitude exam, recognizing their potential to become archmages. He remembers that Ephraim family was from their fief. He expresses his ambition to make Sylvia an archmage, a being beyond the Emperor's reach, one of only 3 in any era. He reveals his plan for Sylvia and Ephraim, descendants of the Elade and a collateral Luna family, to compete for the remaining archmage position. He admits to driving Ephraim's father, Kagan Luna, to suicide solely because of Ephraim's potential. Sylvia, while ambitious, claims she was merely unlucky in the recent incident, dismissing Ephraim's threat. Gilthian warns her to be wary of Deucalion, a genius who could soar high. Sylvia acknowledges Deucalion's cleverness in thwarting her trap, which would have caused Ephraim's mana to vanish and explode upon contact. Despite his awareness of magical observation, Deucalion forced a compromise, saving Ephraim while feigning ignorance of Sylvia's actions. Sylvia is starting to question his true nature. A few days later, at Deucalion's manor, he is getting ready. Deucalion prepares to depart, reflecting on his decision to support Ephraim, removing a death variable and gaining store currency. He acknowledges Ephraim's hostility and the possibility of Sylvia holding a grudge. He is determined to avoid social events, but recognizes the need for store currency to access the shop. He decides to seek out named characters at the Flower of the New Year event. Arriving at the event, Deucalion is greeted. He is surrounded by high-ranking nobles. Among them, he recognizes Yahello, a character he modeled himself after. He affirms his decision to attend. He encounters various nobles eager to interact with him, including one who retracts an earlier statement upon realizing Deucalion's identity. Another noble, Sir Ganesha, mentions Deucalion's feats, offering a dinner invitation, which Deucalion subtly deflects. Deucalion considers befriending Ganesha an important turning point in the story. He searches for a specific individual, the adventurer Ganesha, the fifth strongest character in the early story. Deucalion continues his search for Ganesha, knowing she must be nearby. He finally spots her, a woman with red pigtails, dressed as an adventurer. He needs to act quickly. Yahello, Deucalion's university peer, approaches, surprised to see him. Yahello inquires about Deucalion's research, hinting at rumors of stagnation and doubts about his abilities. Yahello, once close to Deucalion, now harbors jealousy and resentment after losing the head professor position. Deucalion dismisses Yahello's taunts, recognizing them as pointless provocations, though not entirely untrue. He realizes Ganesha has vanished. He is annoyed, blaming his conversation with Yahello for the missed opportunity. Yahello calls him. Deucalion starts to insult him for wasting his time. Deucalion, focused on finding Ganesha before she leaves the continent and becomes unreachable, is further frustrated. His plans have been disrupted. Amidst the bustling event, people wonder where Deucalion has gone, disliking the constant attention. Deucalion is surprised. To his astonishment, he finds Ganesha standing before him. She claims to have been looking for him, having heard he was searching for her. Deucalion is puzzled by their seemingly pre-existing acquaintance. Ganesha playfully admits to getting lost and apologizes for a past mission, offering the advance and cancellation fee as compensation. It appears they have a history related to commissions. Ganesha apologizes for failing to bring a magically talented child as requested. She explains she grew attached and couldn't hand the child over. Deucalion recalls Ganesha's previous statement, realizing it was a veiled threat. He understands she repeat what he did before. Ganesha, with a pointed question, challenges Deucalion about his current lifestyle. Deucalion remembers that before taking over Deucalion's body, the original Deucalion had accepted the useless, destroyed trust, and harmed many for his own fame. He declares his intention to live differently. Deucalion, unexpectedly, expresses no desire to kill her, surprising Ganesha. He dismisses his concerns as excessive, given her past actions. Deucalion reflects on Ganesha's immense power, capable of killing with a single strand of hair, her mastery of all martial arts, and her invincible body. He realizes that, had he not possessed Deucalion, he would likely have sent an assassin after Ganesha, only to have the assassin, and possibly himself, killed. Having achieved his goal of making connections, he prepares to leave. She assures him there will be no assassinations or deaths, a statement Deucalion finds classless. Deucalion contemplates using the Yuckline family's power and the Adventurers Guild to pressure Ganesha, but worries about unforeseen consequences. The game system informs him that a death variable has been avoided, awarding him store currency. He hadn't realized he was in danger. He can't stay longer. Julie's relative, Rayleigh, appears, questioning Deucalion's presence at the event, which she also dislikes. She asks about Julie, concerned about rumors surrounding Deucalion. Julie is far away. Rayleigh, make a comment about it, knowing Deucalion. Ephraim wonders. He hears people whispering about him. Deucalion is walking away. People speculate that Deucalion left early due to disharmony with Julie. Kim Woo-jin, his past identity, is oblivious of it all. The game system confirms the completion of the side quest, awarding him store currency. A week after the Flower of the New Year social event, Deucalion reflects on his activities. Besides his usual memorization and basic telekinesis training, he started working out, feeling his stamina was lacking. This stems from the near-death experience of engraving magic circles onto his body. A flashback shows him collapsing, bleeding, after a magical experiment. He attributes his survival to the Iron Man attribute, realizing a normal mage would have died. His desire for greater strength, triggered by meeting Ganesha, led him to engrave a fire control circle to enhance his telekinesis and metal manipulation. This method, while drastically reducing the time needed to learn magic, is incredibly dangerous. Recognizing the strain on his body, he incorporated physical training into his routine. Finishing his workout, Deucalion prepares for work. He enters his office, where Alan greets him with news of a statement from the Magic Tower. The statement from the Magic Tower Qualification Committee announces an audit hearing in 6 months to review Deucalion's research progress. Deucalion realizes this is a consequence of his predecessor's stagnant research. He understands that his position as a professor is crucial to his existence in this game world. Losing that title would mean losing all hope of returning home. Determined to prove his worth, Deucalion plans to find something of value in Deucalion's laboratory. Entering the lab, he finds it in disarray, seemingly untouched for a long time. He notices an unnatural-looking trail of earth, suspecting it might be hiding something. Despite not knowing the culprit, he believes there's no better way to stop Deucalion. Thanks to his telekinetic manipulation, he unearths a hidden book. The book is encrypted, protecting its research contents. Deucalion effortlessly decrypts it using his comprehension attribute. A blinding golden light emanates from the book, revealing the brilliance of the research, visible only through his combined wealthy magnate and sharp eyesight attributes. However, he finds the research incomplete, with missing sections and incorrect logic. Despite this, the research is valuable enough to trigger a reaction from his wealthy magnate attribute. He discovers a hidden message and a picture of Ephraim Luna, realizing that Ephraim's father was working as Deucalion's researcher. The message reveals the Luna family's grudge against Deucalion and Ephraim's difficult life. Deucalion assures her, in his thoughts, that he will complete the research using comprehension and add her name as a co-author. The scene shifts to a university cafe, where a group of commoner students discuss the importance of sticking together. Ephraim, a former noble, is among them. She reflects on her lack of a noble's residence or land. The group emphasizes that Ephraim needs to be their representative. They discuss the need for a supervising professor to form a club, a significant hurdle. They consider various professors, but dismiss them due to their biases. Ephraim is hoped if the food they offer is eaten. One student suggests asking Professor Deucalion, prompting Ephraim to rush forward, spilling food. A student reassures her, noting that Deucalion looks down on everyone equally. While Ephraim avoided punishment thanks to him, she doubts he has taken a special interest in her. She's reluctant to get involved with Deucalion again. Another student warns against overthinking it, fearing a negative outcome. Julia grabs Ephraim, stopping her. Julia, appearing suddenly, asks what's wrong. Ephraim, startled, steps back. Julia, seeing Deucalion, reacts strongly. Julia, startled by the mention of Deucalion's name. Ephraim's companions are surprised by Julia's sudden appearance, one wishing her luck and the other calling her a coward. Ephraim, flustered, approaches Deucalion. Deucalion, holding a document, acknowledges her. Ephraim, despite her nervousness, presents her request to form a club, needing his signature. Deucalion, though not wanting to get involved, acknowledges the validity of her request. He did agree to a deal before. The other students encourage Deucalion to help. Deucalion takes the document and instructs Ephraim to send the details to his office later. Ephraim, surprised, accepts the document. Deucalion seemingly signed it. Ephraim is shocked by the easy success. The scene shifts to Deucalion's lecture on the understanding of pure elements, the building blocks of all magic. Ephraim ponders Deucalion's motives, wondering if it's guilt or sympathy. knowing he caused her father's death. She dismisses his kindness as fake. A classmate asks if Ephraim is all right. Ephraim finds her classmates annoying. She noticed Sylvia and remembers their encounter. Ephraim feels frustrated to be hated by her. The other students comfort her and tell her to focus in class. Deucalion explains that magic circles have reasoning in each stroke, but his lectures are different. He demonstrates how an ignition spell's color can be changed by adding strokes to the circle, explaining that these strokes determine the flame's color. He presents the topic of the day, flowing fire. Ephraim's initial assumptions about Deucalion's lectures being mere self-aggrandizement are proven wrong. The lectures, now influenced by Kim Woo-jin, are engaging reenactments using mana, offering creative explanations and elite understanding. This is a revelation to the debutantes, including Sylvia, who had lost her passion for learning. Deucalion demonstrates a magic circle for summoning water. He then combines it with a fire magic circle, creating a swirling vortex of purple energy. The students are amazed by the flowing fire effect, Sylvia finding it unexpected. Deucalion explains that while geniuses often rely on intuition, theory is a mere mold. He argues that relying solely on theory limits magic, creating uniformity and hindering training. While acknowledging the need for good intuition to become elite, he points out that elites cannot explain intuition. Teaching a theory-focused lesson is practically impossible for someone whose genius is being questioned. Deucalion's lecture is a refreshing departure from the rumors. Ephraim admits to having never focused so hard on a lecture before. Back in her dormitory, Ephraim ponders the situation. Her door is defaced with insults, which has worsened since the incident with Sylvia. She finds a sponsorship certificate, initially almost falling for it, realizing the absurdity of being sponsored when she's hated by both the Ilade household and Deucalion. She considers reporting it as a fake to get a reward and goes to the magical administration office. The certificate is confirmed as real, shocking her. Overjoyed, she imagines this will finally wake her from her struggles. Ephraim quickly packs an emergency suitcase, fearing the consequences of having 100,000 elms she got for sponsorship. She worries about the staff she thinks is weird. She falls, hurts herself, and realizes she hasn't fully awakened from her troubles. However, the recognition of her talents and the world's continued kindness give her hope to persevere. Uriel, Deucalion's half-sister, questions an informant at the Yahello Manor about Deucalion's activities. The informant confirms that Deucalion is heading to the Schatzenjewel auction. Uriel is frustrated, recalling Deucalion's past extravagant spending and fearing he'll cause another financial disaster. She vows to punish him if he creates further problems. Deucalion, meanwhile, arrives at the city of Teuton's Schatzenjewel auction, determined to acquire a specific item. He reflects on his need for metal to compensate for his lack of talent in telekinesis, his chosen magic. He currently uses wood steel, but it's only a temporary solution. He knows the item he truly needs will be available at the auction. Inside the VIP waiting room, Julie unexpectedly appears. She's surprised by his presence. Julie turns to leave, only to be addressed by Deucalion. He greets her, thinking about this unexpected encounter. Julie, visibly angry, confronts him about his involvement in the recent disciplinary committee, accusing him of trying to ruin the debutante's futures. Deucalion dismisses it as old news, and Julie warns him that his past sins will catch up to him. She gives him a final piece of advice, implying that she's severing all ties with him. Deucalion internally agrees, acknowledging his disinterest in marriage and the dangers surrounding Julie. He idly wonders about her presence. Julie, flustered, insists she's there for her own reasons, looking for a specific item. She gets flustered. Deucalion finds Julie's flustered reaction cute, realizing she had initially misunderstood his intentions. He internally notes a strange sensation, worried that he might be becoming influenced by Deucalion's emotions, despite his efforts to maintain his original personality. The auction is announced. Deucalion dismisses his concerns, focusing on the upcoming event. He watches as the auctioneer presents the first item, a vase from the east. The bidding begins, and Deucalion recognizes a light emanating from the vase, similar to the one he saw when examining Ephorine's papers. The bids quickly escalate. Guest 777, Deucalion, secures the vase for 2.5 million elms. He reasons that the vase's value is higher than its price, and he has enough funds to invest. Various other items are auctioned off, all going to guest 777. The audience identifies guest 777 as Professor Deucalion. Julie finds Deucalion pathetic. Julie finds him no different than her and his vanity. Julie's focus is on obtaining Winter's Fire, the final item of the auction. The auctioneer reveals the coveted item, Winter's Fire, also known as the Snowflare Stone. Julie and Deucalion both express their determination to acquire it. The Snowflare Stone is described as one of the 10 rarest metals, used to forge legendary weapons and holding both heat and cold energies. Julie and Deucalion are resolved to get the item. Bidding starts, escalating rapidly into the tens of millions. Julie successfully bids 30 million elms. However, guest 777, Deucalion, immediately outbids her with 31 million. Julie, shocked and frustrated, questions Deucalion's actions. The crowd speculates that Deucalion is buying the Snowflare Stone, used for crafting swords, as a gift for his fiancée. They further suggest he deeply loves his fiancée, since he could have simply allowed her to buy it. Julie, confused, wonders if she's been competing with herself. Deucalion states that even if he's interested in it, he can't ignore something she is also interested in. The Snowflare is rare, and who knows when it will show again. Julie begins to be concerned. Each of them must get that stone. The auctioneer announces the final bid for the Snowflare Stone, 42 million elms. The winner is revealed to be guest 777, Deucalion. The audience is abuzz, commenting on the excitement and competitiveness of the auction and Deucalion's success. One remarks that Julie's brother was out of line, while others speculate that Deucalion is working hard to give his fiancée a gift. Julie, dejected, realizes Deucalion has achieved his goal. She bitterly reflects on how, once again, she's repeating the events of the previous year, having never desired such extravagant gifts. A flashback reveals Deucalion's past attempts to woo Julie with lavish gifts, claiming he could provide anything for her. He boasted of his greatness, which only served to humiliate Julie. She pointedly reminds him that he already knows what she truly desires. Another flashback shows Deucalion and Julie facing each other at imposing gates, where he demands to know what she wants from him. Julie's actions, leaving the room and ruining her own engagement, stem from her rejection of his materialistic approach. However, Deucalion is not completely fixated in the past. Rumors circulated that Julie, though dignified, begged for Deucalion's affection and was promised a knight position in return, rumors that Julie herself propagated to tarnish her image. Julie wonders if Deucalion's actions are meant to make her return to him, finding the notion foolish. She realizes she can't love him, no matter how hard she tries. Even in this renewed confrontation, Deucalion's actions surprise her. He pointedly asks if she also wanted the Snowflare Stone, provoking her anger. To Julie's shock, Deucalion apologizes. She is left stunned, and he dismissively departs. Julie is flustered. She wonders the reason of his apology when he do not do that. Julie's sister, Josephine, arrives, urging her to get in the car. They drive away from the auction house. Deucalion reflects that Julie likely wanted the Snowflare Stone for herself, and he's frustrated that no death variable appeared despite their conflict. Back at the Yahello Manor, Deucalion is greeted by the staff. They inquire if something happened, as Uriel arrives, furious about Deucalion's extravagant spending. She accuses him of taking money intended to pay for the mines. Deucalion calmly assures her that he purchased something that will generate profits. Uriel, enraged, feels he's treating her like garbage. She confronts him about his spending and questions his motives, crying as she expresses the financial strain the household is under. Uriel is getting angry. Deucalion is starting to face the villain's fate. Uriel's red, destructive aura starts to manifest. Decilion, seeing the danger, realizes that surviving the situation will be financially rewarding. He knows the solution. She confronts Decilion, reminding him of her sacrifices for him and questioning her accusations. She points out her lack of contribution and accuses him of wasting their parents' money. Decilion then boldly declares he will give Uriel the position of household head. Uriel is stunned and enraged by this sudden offer. She accuses him of lying. Decilion offers to swear an oath, shocking Uriel further. He explains about Mage's oath that kills when it is broken. Uriel, still incredulous, questions his sanity, but Decilion remains firm, stating she doesn't have to believe him if she doesn't want to. Uriel starts to think, and she's going to leave. Decilion is pensive. He receives a notification that he has overcome a villain's fate death variable, earning store currency. He's relieved that nothing bad happened and contemplates the gradual changes he's making. Decilion is thinking of the change. Ganesha appears behind Decilion. She states that what he did was unexpected. She thinks Uriel is not fit to be a househead. She states that Uriel von Greyhan-Uklein has no Uklein blood. Decilion is very surprised. Ganesha repeats her statement, clarifying that Uriel has no blood relation to the Ukleins. Decilion, though internally aware that Uriel was supposed to be his half-sister, he is shocked about knowing of her complete lack of blood ties. Ganesha questions the appropriateness of revealing this secret, reminding Decilion that he initially requested the investigation into their blood relations. Decilion, ever pragmatic, acknowledges the situation, stating simply that Uriel is Uriel. Ganesha finds his response surprising, admitting she didn't expect such a statement from him. Decilion assures her he'll keep the secret regarding Uriel. Before leaving, Ganesha has one more piece of information. She informs Decilion that the 6 snake heads have begun to move. These are the leaders of infamous criminal organizations on the continent, known for their notoriety and high bounties. Ganesha warns Decilion that they are after the items bought from the auction house. She implies that Decilion has been neglecting his magical defenses, which is how she was able to enter so easily. Decilion finds a paper beside him that Ganesha left behind. He sighs, acknowledging the new information. He affirms that knowing this changes nothing, as he is not Decilion. Decilion's treatment of Uriel won't change regardless of her biological connection to him. She will always be his sister. Decilion and Ganesha agree to conceal this, finding comfort in a new secret. Elsewhere, adventurers around a campfire discuss Decilion. They are amazed by his change, and one is attracted by him. They are interrupted by Rayleigh, a member of the Red Garnet adventure team and Julie's relative. Rayleigh reveals she no longer needs to observe Decilion, as he is not looking for a magic slave. The adventurers head back. Rayleigh commands them to keep everything they heard secret. She uses her magic. The next day, at the University Magic Tower, Decilion contemplates the system store. He is not able to buy anything from the system store, that he will have 6 chances. He is only at level 1. He will have a chance for level 3 and 6. He realizes he can't rush and waste this valuable opportunity. He reviews his current training routine, memorization, physical training, and controlling levitating blades, but acknowledges he's still lacking in combat strength compared to infamous named villains. He concludes he needs improvements in mana quality for growth. Alan, Decilion's assistant, enters with a report. He advises Decilion to be careful, presenting a wizard journal. The journal contains a wanted poster for Lockhar, a wizard killer. Decilion recognizes Lockhar as the greatest danger to mage players in the early game. While a normal mage wouldn't pose a threat, Decilion sees this as a potential opportunity to earn currency. Decilion dismisses Alan, instructing him to head back to the library. He then asks Alan if he intends to become an assistant professor. Alan, startled, confirms his aspiration despite Decilion's past comments about his lack of talent. Decilion, seeing Alan's earnestness, gives him a bangle engraved with the Uklein emblem. Alan is grateful. Decilion praises Alan's organizational skills and usefulness, deciding to keep him close. He recognizes that others, resentful of Deucalion's past cruelty, have left, leaving Alan, who is willing to do any kind of work, potentially vulnerable. Deucalion gives Alan money and instructs him to buy dinner. Deucalion departs, as Alan surprised and grateful. Deucalion heads to the staff-only library, motivated by Luna's paper. He found the paper on the invention of pure elements in the laboratory. Though filled with errors, he intends to correct it. He also hopes to find useful manipulation-related grimoires. Deucalion is interrupted, asking why he's in the staff-only library. It's Sylvia. 10 minutes prior, Sylvia had been searching for study materials in the executive reading room, a space typically restricted to faculty. The librarian, initially hesitant, is overruled by a magically projected image of Professor Reelan, who grants Sylvia access, citing her status as the successor of Elade and this year's rookie mage. The librarian complies, allowing Sylvia to browse freely. Sylvia, whose hobby is studying literature and languages, has come specifically to find a novel written in Ethanol, the language of the now-disappeared fairies, making such books exceedingly rare. This is the reason for Sylvia's visit to a place she wouldn't normally have access to. As Deucalion approaches, Sylvia is unaware of his presence. He confronts her, questioning her presence in the executive reading room. Sylvia, surprised and recalling rumors of Deucalion's aversion to the library, wonders if he intends to call a disciplinary committee. She explains that she's looking for a specific document and has Professor Reelan's permission. Deucalion realizes that both the professor and the librarian have disregarded school regulations, and those involved deserve discipline. Sylvia, surprised, is interrupted as Deucalion picks up the book she holds. He identifies it as an Ethanol novel, questioning her ability to read the language, though he notes that's not the important issue. Sylvia defends her interest in literature and languages. Deucalion lets it slide this time, warning her that future breaches of protocol without permission will result in disciplinary action. He advises her to send someone else to borrow books in the future, rather than flaunting her family's influence. As Deucalion walks through the library, she silently fumes, feeling humiliated by his words. Sylvia intended to understand the fairies, though Deucalion had questioned her ability to read the novel, pointing out the Ethanol language's inconsistency. He hadn't taken the larger problem, her unauthorized presence, seriously. The narrative shifts to a scene of adventurers in a forest, hunting a magical creature. Deucalion observes them, noting their composure despite it being their first practical training. They're in the Mountain of Darkness, a training ground near the university with high security and a rich source of magical materials. The danger is high due to venomous creatures, prompting the Magic Tower to enforce protective barriers and patrols. The head professor position for overseeing this area is currently vacant. Deucalion volunteers for the role, much to the surprise and approval of the other professor. Deucalion is taking charge, which is the way a head professor should be, the other professor thinks to himself. Deucalion is internally motivated by a side quest notification, the darkness of the Magic Tower, which promises store currency and an additional achievement reward. He feels a pull towards the mountain, likely the reason for the quest. This quest marks a turning point in the game, transitioning it into a horror genre. 9 hours later, Ephraim and her companions enjoy treats at a cafe near the Magic Tower. Ephraim celebrates having 100,000 elms. She offers to treat her friends. They discuss the imminent approval of their club establishment plan and their first gathering. Julia mentions a training session at the Mountain of Darkness, where 50 people volunteered despite the occasional accidents. They suddenly hear a scream and feel a tremor. Rushing outside, they see someone running and screaming for help. Julia hesitates as she shouts for Ephraim, asking her to stop, but Ephraim continues running. Ephraim is surprised by the disappearance of Julia. Ephraim, disoriented, finds herself in an unfamiliar place, separated from her friends. She remembers the person calling for help. She spots someone and calls to them for aid. She is quickly approached and realizes she is in danger. The person screams, revealing a monstrous form. Ephraim, now certain she's being attacked, prepares to defend herself. He walks, when suddenly Deucalion appears, surprising her. She accuses him of attacking the woman, questioning his right to harm a civilian. Deucalion tells her to open her eyes and look again, clarifying that it's not a person. The creature, revealed to be a demon, lunges. Deucalion explains that Sylvia was under an illusion, a common demonic tactic. Ephraim tries to intervene, but Deucalion tells her to get lost. The demon attacks Deucalion. He prepares to hunt the demon, enraged by its escape. He engages the demon, showcasing his power. Deucalion identifies the demon's specialty as illusions, noting the core on its forehead. His own resolute, which resists mental attacks, makes the illusions ineffective. Deucalion's lineage, Yukline, makes his blood boil with rage. The Yukline attribute is revealed, a lineage with exceptional power in subjugating demons. It purifies surrounding mana and increases mana quality, but also makes the user more aggressive. The legacy of the Yukalines, known for hunting demons since ancient times, manifests in Deucalion. He vows to kill the demon. Deucalion's rage intensifies. He completes the side quest, earning store currency, defeating the first demon, and unlocking the Yukline attribute. Deucalion insults it and then kills the demon. He is shocked by the demon's appearance. He thinks the appearance of the demon is a signal, a sign that the game without the player is beginning. The scene opens on a university building. Ephraim, having been rescued by Deucalion, wakes up in the clinic disoriented. She vaguely recalls being in the woods, but struggles to remember the details. A nurse explains that a demon appeared in the mountain of darkness, and Ephraim was bewitched and passed out. She was found and brought to the clinic. Ephraim learns that Professor Deucalion saved her, much to her chagrin. She's informed has been at the clinic for 36 hours, realizing it's Wednesday. Ephraim is late. She sees her two friends. Ephraim rushes to class, barely making it in time. Julie spots her and is concerned. She was at the clinic and Ephraim was not awake. Ephraim and Julie learn that there will be a special class today. Deucalion enters with Alan, carrying a box. Ephraim wonders who is he. Deucalion announces that Alan will be his teaching assistant. The students are surprised, as Deucalion was known for teaching alone. It's speculated that becoming a teaching assistant is a way to build one's resume, though unlikely with Deucalion. Ephraim is reminded of her father's inability to become a teaching assistant at 30. She questions Deucalion's sudden decision to take on a mage as an assistant. Deucalion announces that today's lecture will be based on experience. Students, including Sylvia, are given a 3-hour task with a timer. Ephraim thinks of her father's inheritance, finding a similarity in the bracelet to Deucalion. She questions her father's relationship with Deucalion and his recent generous actions. Ephraim feels she must finish the task. Sylvia completes the task in a mere 25 minutes and 15 seconds. Her peers praise her speed, noting it hasn't even been 30 minutes. Alan and Deucalion watch. Deucalion permits Sylvia to leave. Ephraim witnesses this. Sylvia, though relieved, is filled with hatred toward Deucalion. Ephraim struggles to get tasks done. Deucalion starts to dismiss all the students one by one. After 3 hours, Deucalion calls for Ephraim to leave. She announces that she has done 4, then collapses, desperately trying to come up with a solution. She berates herself for being worse than Sylvia and failing to accomplish anything. Ephraim feels stupid, recalling her past failures and inability to compete. He remembers her. That has been 5 hours and 47 minutes. Deucalion, still present, asks how long she intends to make him wait. He criticizes her for breaking down over an easy assignment and failing to finish in time. He emphasizes the importance of remaining cold and logical, even in the face of ridicule or being surpassed. Deucalion declares that Ephraim will never reach his level with such a weak mind, expressing his disappointment. He leaves. Ephraim, stung by his words, sits alone. She repeats the statement, finding Ephraim better than this. Ephraim is fuming. A green power emerges from the bracelet, with a green aura. Ephraim is determined, her anger fueling her resolve. She declares she'll do it, no matter what it takes. Deucalion reflects on the recent events, believing the effort spent on Ephorine was a necessary cost. He needs her to grow stronger for the challenges to come. The appearance of the demon on the Mountain of Darkness signifies the imminent beginning of the main quest. During the age of overwhelming evil, characters with a good alignment will appear, and among them will be a stronger Ephorine. While she currently lacks mental fortitude and a mage's sensibilities, Deucalion anticipates her overcoming these weaknesses and experiencing significant growth, a growth that could potentially threaten him. However, Deucalion, a firm believer in self-reliance over fate, is confident he can prevent that. His personality wouldn't allow a newcomer to surpass him. Ephorine opened the door and exited the class. He pauses, noticing something. He examines the completed assignment from Ephorine, noting the time it took, 6 hours and 25 minutes. He acknowledges her flaws as a non-academy graduate, but also recognizes the high quality of her results, worthy of first place. This completes a side quest, awarding him store currency. Now that Ephorine has returned, Deucalion decides to head back to his residence. As he walks, he's intercepted by a large, boisterous man. It's Zeit von Bruggenfreden, Julie's older brother, and a powerful figure ranked above even Ganesha in initial combat strength. Deucalion wonders about Zeit's motives for seeking him out, suspecting it might be related to Julie's Snowflare Stone. He internally braces himself, unsure if this encounter constitutes a death variable, though he has no particular animosity towards Zeit. Zeit, with a jovial demeanor, expresses concern over Deucalion and Julie's recent interactions. He proposes a dinner arrangement between them, seemingly friendly for now. Deucalion agrees readily. Zeit, pleased with the quick decision, promises a menu tailored to Deucalion's tastes and assures him he'll handle the arrangements. Deucalion realizes Zeit orchestrated the encounter, leaving him no room to refuse. Zeit holds his household in high regard, and Deucalion understands that interfering with his plans could be dangerous. The next day, at the Frieden household, Julie vehemently objects to the dinner. She expresses her hatred for Deucalion and her busy scheduled training nights, leaving her no time for such a meeting. Zeit dismisses her protests, calling her sulky over a mere Snowflare Stone. Julie, becoming angry, Zeit suggests Deucalion bought the metal, which is only used to forge weapons, to give to her. He adds that if he were to offer it as a gift, she would break the engagement. Julie, frustrated in Zeit. He insists she think carefully, reminding her that there's no place for emotions in politics. He questions whether she has any romantic attachments, which she denies. Julie denies Zeit's suggestion. He prepares to leave, instructed her to be on time, and to resolve any issues then. They meet, and a clash of swords ensues. Julie finds herself on the defense. Varen, Julie's subordinate from the Order of High Cane, she apologizes for her disrespectful behavior. Varen, however, clarifies that he doesn't find Julie abominable, but finds it unreasonable for the residing head to push for her marriage with such a man. She's told to not talk ill of Deucalion. Julie assures that it does not matter, as she is okay. As Varen is silent, Julie, ordering Varen to get ready, prepares to return. Varen is lost in thought, reflecting on how he's found a way to prove his loyalty. It's something only he can do, and he intends to make Julie happy. Deucalion, having finished organizing the items he acquired at the auction, prepares to equip Rufarin's ring, which aids in mana recovery, and the ancient rune necklace, capable of storing mana. He plans to store the remaining items in a vault, following Ganesha's advice to avoid theft. However, a problem arises. The most important item, the Frostflame Stone, isn't behaving as expected. While he anticipated difficulty using it immediately, he's surprised that his telekinesis has no effect on it, suspecting the stone's mana is resisting his magic. He spent a lot in it. He recalls reading something relevant during his library visit. The concept of communion, a process of taming a famed sword by forming an understanding with the sword itself. Deucalion decides to try. Deucalion reaches out. An unexpected surge of power occurs. He places his hand on the stone, and it is successful as he achieves 0.1% comprehension, increasing his mana by 300, but estimates it will take at least a year at this rate. Deucalion questions if this slow progress is the best he can do currently, before deciding it's time to prepare for his upcoming outing. He reviews his schedule, noting the dinner arranged by Zeit. This event, along with the looming death anniversary scheduled 3 days later, weighs on his mind. Deucalion arrives at the restaurant von Meschel, noting that Julie, having left before him, should already be inside. Zeit greets her, complimenting Julie's appearance. Deucalion is surprised to find that it is beautiful. Deucalion notes Julie's beauty, contrasting her usual armor. He is proud of her effort. Another individual arrives, accompanying Julie to pick out her dress, Rylan. Deucalion realizes he hadn't noticed Rylan because his focus was on Julie. He wasn't expecting to see her there. He's then introduced to Josephine, Julie's sister, but also a named character he must be wary of. Josephine is described as a sociopath, the owner of an undercover intelligence network, and possesses strength comparable to Zeit's. Her sole affection is for Julie, making any harm to Julie a trigger for her wrath. Deucalion understands why Josephine hasn't harmed him yet, but he sensed her murderous intent upon entering the room. He acknowledges this encounter as a significant and dangerous death variable, requiring him to demonstrate his seriousness about Julie to survive. Zeit gets straight to the point, asking Deucalion when he intends to hold the engagement ceremony, reminding him it's been 3 years. Josephine intervenes, telling Zeit the adults are talking. Deucalion is ready to respond. Deucalion is about to answer, but Zeit interrupts. Josephine, with a menacing aura, states that he will leave the relationship entirely in Julie's hands. Julia is visibly shocked. Zeit voices his concern about the casualness of potentially dissolving the engagement. Julia is shaking. She points out that breaking the engagement isn't simple and would require the family elder's approval. Julia addresses the family head as she requests a private conversation between the two of them. Zeit agrees, and they leave. Deucalion wonders what game he is playing, and wonder then Josephine, holding a glass of wine, is secretly using her power to spy on them, as she heard Julia asking, "What do you want?" Julie reiterates her question, demanding to know Deucalion's true desires. Deucalion realizes Josephine is eavesdropping behind the door, likely with Josephine's knowledge, her laughter earlier being a cover for a wiretap. He sees this as an opportunity. If he can convince Josephine that he genuinely loves Julie, he might be able to overcome this death variable. Deucalion begins to speak, addressing Julie directly. He claims to have spoken his truth, much to Julie's confusion. He asserts that he cannot dissolve the engagement at will, and there's nothing either of them can do, as things have progressed too far. Julie, growing impatient, questions his methods. Deucalion reminds her that before their engagement, she used her connections to force it, promising compensation to his family's elders. He addresses Julie up again. Julie yells, finding fighting dangerous. She accuses him of forcing her to stop pursuing the Imperial Order and suggesting she take up leadership of the Order of Hadekane, which is supervised by the Yucline family, spreading rumors about her when she refused. She is furious, wondering if this behavior continues. Deucalion acknowledges knowing all of this, how he manipulated Julie into staying, committing unforgivable acts. Julie, understanding Deucalion's hatred better than anyone, declares she won't fall for his tricks. Deucalion admits he knows he's been holding Julie back, acknowledging the wrongfulness of his actions. Julie is listening. He points out that her older sister and brother have also gone too far, and if it weren't for family reputation, they would have no reason to oppose dissolving the engagement. As Josephine listens, Deucalion adds to it. Deucalion says Julie must leave her family to pursue her dream of becoming a defender. He then, disarmingly, states that he possesses neither honesty nor loyalty, shocking Julie. He admits to being the opposite of the human qualities she strives for, making him unsuitable for her. He proposes they continue their engagement, but never marry, freeing her from the tangled web of interests, though he wishes he could set her free. He offers her the use of his name until her preparations to manifest her dream bear fruit, promising to wait and maintain their engagement. Julie, stunned, questions his sudden change of heart. He claims he's not expecting anything, only that she show him her smile once a month. He declares that this is all he wants. Julie is flustered, as Josephine as well. Decillion admits he was simply saying what Josephine wanted to hear to avoid death variables. However, he acknowledges Julie's adorable reaction and admits she's won him over with her embarrassment. Julie is furious, telling Decillion she would not fall for his schemes. She thinks the words are embarrassing and hope that he is honest. Then she wants to see it for a little longer. The scene concludes and Decillion is shown at the Fried-In household. He successfully avoids the death variable, earning store currency. 3 days pass quickly and the death anniversary arrives. Decillion walks through a cemetery, the atmosphere stirring emotions. The sunset casts a glow on the weeds and tombstones, a place that holds memories, not for Decillion, but for Kim Woo-jin. A flashback reveals a conversation between Kim Woo-jin and his team leader, Yahello, about adding an Easter egg to Decillion's background. Yahello suggests fleshing out Decillion's backstory, with the author's permission. Woo-jin dismisses the idea, arguing it's pointless and would increase their already heavy workload. Yahello insists it's important, emphasizing their dedication to the game. Woo-jin relents, though he questions the relevance since it's unrelated to sales. Yahello considers a good idea. Woo-jin reflects on Yahello's past enthusiasm for fun ideas, wondering what she found so interesting about Decillion's bereaved past fiancé. He questions if it was for their team members or an easy way to take care of the people around her, and what joke was placed as an Easter egg and made her laugh. Back in the present, at the cemetery, Decillion seeks traces of Kim Woo-jin's memories to understand the situation better. He ponders whether Yahello's actions were brilliant or cruel. He finds a tombstone inscribed with Yahello von Fergie's Mahinicht, and wonders why she had her name engraved there. It's revealed that Decillion was modeled after Kim Woo-jin, and Yahello used her own name for Decillion's deceased fiancé. He wonders if she thanked him. Decillion kneels, touching the tombstone, overcome with emotion as memories of Yahello flood his mind. He remembers her praise, her warmth, her love, and the 7 years they spent together. These are his memories of her. Suddenly, Decillion is attacked. A voice calls him a filthy mage, and Decillion, though emotionally shaken, regains his composure. He recognizes his attacker, a familiar face, Lockhart, also known as the Wizard Killer. Lockhart, a mini-boss villain exclusively for mages. Lockhart's ability is magic nullification, making him a natural enemy of mages. His attribute has no restrictions beyond physical contact, rendering magic unusable within his range. Lockhart boasts about his magic immunity, as Decillion dodging his attacks. While most mages would fear Lockhart, he declares Decillion to die. He strikes, making Lockhart falls. However, Lockhart's attacks are meaningless to Decillion. Decillion, empowered by his Iron Man attribute and recent improvements in mana quality, finds the fight surprisingly easy. The mana improvement applies to a larger range and to his routine. He taunts Lockhart, realizing that the quality enhancement affects his overall being. Lockhart falls. Decillion overcomes the death variable, earning more store currency. He acknowledges that his improved mana quality extends to his attributes as well. While he initially believed Iron Man alone would suffice, the trait strengthening made the fight easier than expected. Lockhart is shocked and is unable to erase the mages. Lockhart rants and calls him names, accusing Decillion of being a traitor. Decillion recognizes Lockhart's intense rage and unique ability, realizing he is dealing with an apostasy, a member of the Red Film race. Lockhart is in disbelief at how the mage knows that. Decillion explains that the Bloodshroud race, named for their birth appearance, are descendants of demons. They hide their identities throughout the continent and are fundamentally opposed to mages. Just as magecraft was created to combat demons, The conflict between mages and the Bloodshroud race was central to the game's worldview and a major plot point. Decilion stands over the defeated Lockhart. Because of their ancestry, the Bloodshroud race lives are endangered. Decilion suspects a cleansing is underway. He expresses understanding for Lockhart's plight and the oppression his people have faced, but points out that killing an innocent mage would make Lockhart a monster. Lockhart angrily demands silence, telling Decilion to kill him. Decilion states that he is Yuckline's Decilion. Decilion surprises Lockhart by stating his belief in the Bloodshroud race's innocence. Lockhart accuses Decilion of acting pretentiously before killing him. Decilion counters that the only time he's lost his dignity was facing a demon, an instinctual reaction ingrained in the Yuckline bloodline, hunters of demons since ancient times. He questions if he lost composure or wavered at Lockhart's provocations or acted berserk. He declares Lockhart human, a statement representing true, noble dignity. Decilion tells Lockhart he can trust him. Inspector Ropa arrives and kicks Lockhart. Decilion instructs Ropa to stay still and let him be arrested. Ropa praises Decilion's kick. Decilion says it is fine and to leave him be. Decilion uses his magic. Ropa marvels at the magic, noting that magic handcuffs are useless due to magic neutralization, suggesting steel wire instead. Ropa notes Decilion is early and he thought he was just patrolling. Ropa states that they received a report and asks Decilion if he made it. Decilion denies it, suggesting someone else overheard the commotion and reported it. Decilion orders Ropa to leave. Decilion is relieved to avoid bloodshed, knowing traces of era remain. He reflects that he didn't want to hurt anyone. The next day, a meeting is called in Birched, the first in 15 years, taking place at the Yuckline Estate's training room. Decilion, shirtless, opens with a parchment. Uriel, his half-sister, comments that since he does not care, she had to come herself. She questions his disregard, reminding him of his family responsibilities as the residing head. Decilion reads from the parchment, mentioning the recent demon incident at the Mountain of Darkness, prompting Birch to summon the mages for discussion. This triggers the main quest, Birch's Call. He has to travel to Birch in a week, accompanied by one guard, for a total of 2 people. Uriel asks if he needs a guard, and suggests Jeff. He dismisses Jeff because he is now more accustomed to driving. Though she thinks he can't travel unguarded, Uriel feels confident in his abilities. Uriel says that the journey to Birched is one where his life can't be guaranteed. Decilion asks if she's worrying about him, and she responds not to say something so gross, since she is yet to receive the residing head position. He will leave the decision to her. Decilion leaves the guard issue to her, asking her to commission it to a trustworthy place. At the order of Freehame's post, knights are training, with Julie overseeing them. A supervisor observes the training. Varen asks the supervisor what he should do. The supervisor is shocked by Varen's murderous aura. He tells Varen to make some noise as he moves. The supervisor mentions a large commission that has come in for their order, but he is bothered and uncertain whether to accept it. He tells him to not worry, to not share his concerns, especially not with her. The commission involves guarding Decilion, specifically the entire train, though it's clear the task is being downplayed. Varen decides they must take this commission. It is a big opportunity. However, the relationship between Decilion and their captain is problematic. Varen believed Julie would never let personal feelings interfere with a mission. The supervisor decided to mention the commission to the captain, as Varen omits a murderous aura. Birched, the name of the Alpine region in the northern continent, located at an altitude of 3,500 meters, is also the dwelling place of mages called elders. It's where all the schools of sorcery across the continent submit their ideas, influencing the magic world to such an extent that it could be called its pillar. The decisions made there are followed even by the floating island of mages. The summoning assembly occurs rarely, only once every several decades, making attendance both an honor and a recognition of a mage's status. Yet, a summon from Birched is also known as a mage's grave. At the train station, on the platform for the train to Birched, The servant confirms that Deculion has made thorough preparations. Julie spots Deculion arriving. Deculion, accompanied by Alan, comments on the snowy weather, despite it being April. He thanks Alan for coming all this way, and introduces Julie, informing her that the Order of Freeheim will be responsible for guarding the first half of the train. Julie, flustered, promises to do their utmost to ensure a comfortable trip. She remembers Her's promise. She recalls his request for her to smile once a month, and Julie struggles to decide how to smile. Supervisor, watching, is impressed by Julie's dedication despite her loathing for Deculion. Varen approaches, introducing himself. He explains that he has been tasked with guard duty, surprising Deculion, who expected only the two of them. The servant reassures Deculion that Varen is a skilled individual, recognized by their whole order. Deculion acknowledges Varen's skill and uses sharp eyesight to assess him, finding no special energy. He concludes he might be overthinking it. As most mages are accompanied by an escort, there's one assigned per cabin, and Varen will take charge of Deculion's. Deculion expresses his trust, wishing them a safe trip. They depart, with Julie struggling to maintain her composure. The supervisor is confused. Deculion smirks, having kept his promise. Several hours later, on the train, passengers are settling in. Varen advises Deculion to sleep, as they have several hours ahead. Deculion briefly drifts off, as Alan also dozes. A summon from Birched is known as the Mage's Grave for a specific reason, contrasting with its image as the pillar of the magic world. It's because of the unexpected event that occurs every time the Birch summoning assembly takes place, the train attack. Safely navigating this event, one of Deculion's many causes of death, is a game of wits. One could buy information about which train would be attacked from dark connections. The original Deculion would have done that. However, that's not possible now, because he cut off all such dark connections after possessing the body. He has made several preparations for protection, including acquiring the legendary martial arts techniques of Estran, using comprehension. Flashback to when he first invited Alan to Birched, as he is free to refuse. Alan, who is emotional, happy, is told if snot runs down his nose he will not be taking him. In present, Alan sleeps soundly, despite causing a fuss earlier due to excitement. Deculion finds it unexpected that Alan came despite knowing the danger, perhaps indicating greater ambition than anticipated. The train speeds along the tracks. Another station, most of the people departed. Alan and Deculion take a seat. With this being the only station left, Deculion wonders if he picked the right train, as nothing has happened so far. He reflects on his thorough preparations, including enhancing George's suit with Midas Touch to increase its defensive capabilities. He also strengthened the wood-steel shuriken and applied Midas Touch to the various wood-steel spread around the inside of the train and even to Alan's clothes, improving the integrity of their protective robes. However, his heavy use of Midas Touch has left him with little mana, making him wonder if it was a waste. He reassures himself that preparations are best, hoping for continued peace. The train continues on its journey, before an explosion rocks the train. The scene shifts to a flashback, a few days before Deculion's departure. Sylvia and her father discuss the numerous assignments at the Magic Tower. Despite missing a few classes and aspiring to become an archmage, Sylvia works harder than anyone. She expresses doubt about her ability to become an archmage with her current workload. Sylvia admits she's not worried about Ephraim, but misses Deculion's lessons. Her father questions their early departure for Birch's summoning assembly. He is silent. He asks Sylvia if she knew the trip to be Mage's graveyard. Sylvia responds it is not, after thinking it was a ghost story. He reveals that whenever there's a summons to Birched, some mages lose their lives. 15 years ago, 11 died. Getting summoned to Birched signifies a prestigious family, and if among the 20 chosen families, their family will be engraved in history. However, summoned families that don't attend are expelled from the register, and a new family takes their place. He questions the ease of dragging down prestigious families. Her father explains that the trip to Birched is like skim ice, where those who want to become prestigious sorcerers aim for the lives of existing ones. That's why they're rushing. He received intelligence about a group scheming to attack the train leaving later. He took Sylvia with him to be as careful as possible. He adds that if they're found out, it'll be an issue, and he should explain it to Sylvia, as she will also face the cruelty of this world. Of the 12 traditional families, he considers punishment necessary for all sorcerers if any are traditional. Deaths on the way to the assembly are considered a magical, natural death. The scene returns to the present on the attack train. The train is under attack. Explosions rock the train. He is composed. His eyes glow, activating vision enhancement. He uses psychokinesis to lift objects. Alan is awakes from all the commotion and the change of temperature. Pointing out the train is in midair. Deucalion calmly notes it's a relief, as elementary telekinesis has been memorized, along with Estrin's martial arts, saving their lives. Other mages assassins on the roof express their disbelief. They decide to focus, expecting a reward for their success. They attack, breaking through the train structure. Deucalion calls the attackers morons, sending with steel shurikens flying. He had anticipated this attack and strikes with precision. A masked attacker is surprised. Alan is in shock and confusion, recognizing the attack. Deucalion tells Alan to rest, then confronts Varen, ordering him to take Alan to safety and evacuate other passengers. Varen breaches the train. Deucalion is standing by the hole in the train. Deucalion feels a softness, his enhanced senses from Iron Man, allowing him to perceive the difference. He focuses on finishing things up before pondering further, reminding the attackers that they initiated this, and their deaths are natural consequences. Varen places Alan on a safe place, while watching the train on the sky. The train is floating due to Deucalion's magic. The aftermath reveals casualties, and Deucalion is exhausted, his mana depleted from the explosion and fighting. Varen moves all the passengers to safety, while Deucalion is silent. Varen's gaze changes. Deucalion states that he was also taken back by the attack, so he must be surprised. Varen shows his rage. Deucalion wonders if this is part of the villain's fate, and if Varen was hiding his attributes and moving with him from the beginning, causing him to let his guard down. Varen considers it a relief Deucalion survived. Varen declares he has to kill Deucalion himself. Varen confirms that he has safely evacuated the other passengers. He then turns his attention to Deucalion, declaring it's now his turn to die, and attacks with a sword imbued with red energy. Deucalion, questioning Varen's motives, wonders if he's acting under someone's orders. Varen, enraged, as Deucalion is about to mention Julie's name, but stops himself, warning Deucalion not to utter his master's name, emphasizing Julie's upright character and dismissing Deucalion's foul imagination. Varen reaffirms his intent to kill Deucalion by his own hand for his master. Deucalion observes that Varen's reaction seems unrelated to Julie. The servant, appearing, praises Varen as someone everyone in their order trusts, highlighting Deucalion's predicament with only 10 mana left against a talented opponent. Varen declares his guard duty ended and launches a powerful attack. Varen keeps attacking. Deucalion cancels his telekinesis, causing the train to begin falling. Meanwhile, Sylvia, offered birch specialty, permanent snow ice cream by a knight named Sirio, who introduces herself. She says other than Yuckline, rewind, everyone is here, but declines, stating she needs to contact Deucalion. She thinks of Deucalion, not intending to see a vision from her past. A flashback begins, showing Sylvia visiting her mother's grave, Iclian von Elraminalade. She complains about Deucalion's excessive assignments, and hears a sound. Curious, Sylvia investigates. She is shocked. Hidden, she spots Deucalion kneeling at a grave, his posture surprisingly vulnerable. Sylvia wonders why he's there, not expecting him to mourn someone. Approaching, she realizes he's crying, a stark contrast to his usual cold demeanor. She sees the tears. The sight fascinates her, as the arrogant professor reveals a hidden emotional depth. His tears, like shooting stars, linger in her mind. She is speechless. She remembers her father's claim that he knew someone was going to attack the other train. She finds the memory of Deucalion's tears. Inspired by Deucalion's past lecture, Sylvia decides to experiment, using a mana stone as a medium. Combining magic's three attributes, she achieves primary colors creation, creating a small bird. She names it Swift and commands it to fly, observing its flight. Back in the present, the train is still damaged. Deucalion is injured, though the train thankfully didn't crash completely. He attributes his survival to Iron Man, though he suspects broken bones. Varen attacks relentlessly, surprised that Deucalion is still alive. Deucalion counters, using protective chi. Deucalion mocks Varen's persistence. Varen attacks. Deucalion manages to dodge, recognizing Varen's strength. Deucalion recognizes the resolute attribute, maintaining mental power throughout battle. He realizes Deucalion won't bend, and continues attacking, using with steel shurikens. Deucalion focuses, attacking repeatedly, cursing his lack of mana. Varen persists, wondering if cutting Deucalion with his sword will end the game, bringing him back to his office. He strikes a final, bloody blow, as Sylvia's bird flies above the falling train. Varen, sword raised, delivers a seemingly fatal blow to Deucalion. He declares it's over, but is suddenly shocked as the space around them wavers. Varen is hit. He questions what's happening, his hand bloodied. He cries out in pain, seizing the opportunity. With only one mana point remaining, Deucalion launches a wood steel shuriken, hitting Varen. Varen stumbles, and Deucalion throws him off the train. Varen, with sword, is shocked. Deucalion psychokinesis, holds his body and places him in safety. Varen, suspended in the air, attacks again, questioning Deucalion's actions. Deucalion, equally confused, doesn't know why he's trying to kill him, recalling the evil deeds Varen claims he committed against his liege. He presses Varen, asking if he's truly doing this for Julie's sake, even without her request. Varen, enraged, screams that Deucalion would never understand. A flashback begins, showing Julie, accompanied by young Varen and others, thanking a woman. Julie states she simply fulfilled her knightly duty. A flashback of a young Varen, being held captive and told to go because he hasn't done anything wrong and is being harassed by a noblewoman and her son. Julie intervenes, saving him. The noblewoman threatens to report Varen, accusing him of assault and trespassing. Julie, unfazed, defends Varen, pointing out the absurdity of the accusation given his social status and physical condition. The noblewoman insists on taking Varen to the police herself, but Julie leads him away, stating he's being kidnapped. The noblewoman's claims are revealed to be at least partly false, as the Phrygia household is infamous for its behavior. Julie, though enraged, restrains herself, reminding Varen that violence is wrong, but acknowledging her own actions. She offers to teach him self-control. Varen, with red eyes, is in shock. Julie asks if he will feed him, then reveals how they first met. After joining the Night Order, Varen's childhood and personality made it difficult to get along with others. Julie was the only one who cared for him. Julie tells him he is having a hard time. He felt that everything was all right as long as he was beside his captain. Julie always led, helping others and refusing to negotiate with injustice, earning Varen's respect, admiration, and love. Back in the present, suspended in the air, Varen admits his emotions get in Julie's way, yet he still intends to kill Deucalion, believing it will someday lead to Julie's destruction. Deucalion acknowledges this is a butterfly effect of his actions, but counters that Varen is wrong. He states his intent to change what Deucalion has done, ensuring Deucalion's end isn't one of destruction. Varen is surprised. Deucalion warns Varen not to harm Julie, no matter what, stating to trust him. Deucalion offers a helping hand to Varen, but shocked by Versen's sudden display of power. Varen insists his mind won't be changed, resolving to kill Deucalion regardless. Deucalion calls Varen a fool, declaring his foolish choice will torment Julie forever, and releases the amplified rock. A flashback of Julie. She is getting worried, and her knight asks if she's unwell, suggesting she's worried about Varen, but assures her he can take care of himself. Varen, defeated, thinks of his liege, hoping for her happiness amidst scattered flowers. Sylvia's magical bird, Swift, flies above the destroyed train. Below, Decilion stands, having killed Varen. It's clarified that Varen initiated the attack, and Decilion acted in self-defense. Sylvia's assistant finds her, urging her to return as the assembly will begin soon. Sylvia, thinking of Decilion, wonders if he will arrive on time. Lilia Freemian, vice chief of the Security Bureau, arrives, confirming there was an explosion and attack, though it's a common occurrence near the Birch Summoning Assembly. She inquires about casualties, learning there were no injuries, but 2 people are missing, Varen and Professor Decilion. She's directed to a survivor, Alan, for details. Alan, still unconscious, is questioned. He recounts being saved by a knight, with the train being midair before falling, and believes the assassins launched a second attack. A photo of the damaged train, suspended in the air, is presented. Lilia is astonished that someone raised the entire train with magic. She's informed that Varen is dead, having tried to kill Decilion, who survived. Lilia receives telepathic messages. She spots someone approaching. It's Decilion. Decilion reflects that, without the strange phenomenon, he would have been killed by a knight, not some unnamed assailant. Now he would be at the bottom of a cliff, instead of his attacker, and unable to believe his powerlessness. He wonders who helped him. Lilia greets Decilion and introduces herself, stating she has questions. It's 3:30, giving Decilion 6 hours. She confirms these are formal inquiries. When Decilion states that there's more way to get to the assembly, Lilia adds, and that there are road and sea routes. She requests Decilion listen to the end and asks about Varen. Lilia and another person are shocked as the 2 on the train are stating the probability of Decilion having used acceleration magic. She comments on Decilion's high mana consumption, blocking the train derailment, fighting assassins, and using high-level acceleration magic. She then names the man she is talking as Lockhart. The Birched Assembly is about to begin. Attendees are seated, with it being almost time for the stars to gather. Decilion is still not there. Gratitude is expressed to those who responded to the summons. A powerful mana surge is felt, attributed to Deskton, Birch's great elder and a living legend. Attendees are reminded of the assembly's purpose. Representatives from various families, Ilade, Bran, Virad, and Rewind, are present. Next is Decilion of the Eucline family. However, Eucline is not yet present. If he doesn't arrive before his name is called 3 times, he'll be eliminated from the 12 Sorcerers, a major event as they were first summoned 200 years ago. Some scoff, noting the current Decilion's lack of capabilities compared to his ancestors. Sylvia finds the situation bothersome. As Decilion's name is called, he is announced. The announcer is interrupted. Sylvia is surprised, as are others. Decilion appears, fixing his coat and hair. The announcement is completed. Decilion von Greyhen Eucline is here. Decilion walks toward his seat. Eucline's residing head has arrived. The Birched Assembly meeting, having commenced in a tense silence after Decilion's dramatic entrance, moved forward swiftly. The first order of business concerned the recent appearance of a demon in the Black Mountain region. Ethinsel of the Brand family, her green hair framing a serious expression, emphasized the gravity of the situation, suggesting it was more critical than the previous demon's sighting in the capital. She proposed that all magical schools cooperate with the church and dispatch mages to investigate suspicious areas. Her concise opinion, delivered with an air of divinity inherent to her family, met no resistance, and the matter was concluded rapidly. Following this, the imposing, cloaked figure presiding over the assembly announced a short break. The moment the tension eased, Decilion felt an overwhelming wave of exhaustion wash over him. He had pushed himself to the absolute limit, running like a madman, faster than a speeding bullet train, some might say, just to arrive on time, depleting nearly all his mana and stamina in the process. Yet, glancing at his reflection. His appearance remained impeccably composed, a testament, he begrudgingly admitted, to the annoyingly incredible passive traits inherent to the body he now inhabited. As the assembly members dispersed for the break, a familiar voice called out. It was Alan, his assistant, looking tearful and relieved as he inquired about the professor's well-being. Alan explained his tardiness, mentioning he had been barred from entering once the meeting officially began. Deucalion, maintaining his stoic facade, reassured the boy, telling him not to worry. Internally, however, Deucalion's perception of Alan shifted. He couldn't shake the feeling that the boy wasn't merely the innocent student he appeared to be. Something felt distinctly off about his identity. Why, then was he keeping Alan close? For what purpose? A quote echoed in his mind. Something about keeping certain people close? Yes, that seemed prudent. He instructed Alan to remain by his side from that point forward, startling the young man. Deucalion resolved then and there, with a mental nod to Sun Tzu, or maybe it was Michael Corleone, to keep Alan near, the better to observe him and uncover whatever secret he held. The assembly reconvened shortly after. The elder announced the next, far more contentious topic, the emergence of the blood-shroud sorcerer. Deucalion recognized this sensitive issue immediately. It wouldn't be resolved as easily as the previous discussion. The atmosphere instantly grew thick with tension. Vedhan, the fiery head of the Viarad family, slammed his fist on the table, vehemently denouncing the blood-shroud race. He compared them to insidious cockroaches, breeding in secret and corrupting their lands from within. Ithensel calmly countered, demanding evidence for such claims and reminding Vedhan that they currently lacked any reliable means to even differentiate blood-shrouds from other races. Vedhan retorted furiously, insisting they invent a method and use the might of the Imperial Magic Tower to eradicate the blood-shrouds immediately, his harsh words drawing a sharp rebuke from Ithensel. Deucalion observed silently, having anticipated this inevitable clash of ideologies. Vedhan pressed on, arguing passionately that the blood-shrouds were undoubtedly gathering under a mysterious leader, their motives unknown. Ithensel dismissed his impassioned speech as pure speculation, further enraging Vedhan. He appealed to the assembly's sense of disgust, questioning if the thought of a hidden enemy plotting in the shadows didn't repulse them. He brought up the past, blaming the indecisiveness of 60 years prior for the deaths of countless mages. The argument raged back and forth. After a moment, Giltheon of the Yalade family interjected thoughtfully. He turned the assembly's attention towards Deucalion, asking for his perspective. Giltheon pointedly reminded everyone of the Yucline family's long-standing history as exorcists, the spearhead against demonic threats. Deucalion considered his response carefully. He knew from his past life's knowledge that hatred born from abandoning understanding always bred misfortune. While suppressing the blood-shrouds felt wrong, he also knew he needed to delay any drastic action. Their situation was intrinsically tied to a future main quest. The true common enemy of this world, the ultimate threat, wasn't the blood-shrouds at all. He finally spoke, acknowledging that long ago, the blood-shrouds were indeed considered their enemy. However, he continued, a thorough review of historical literature revealed the entire conflict stemmed from a significant misunderstanding. Vedhan scoffed disbelievingly. Deucalion affirmed his statement, recounting the Rodran witch incident from 237 years prior. An innocent individual named Rodran was falsely accused, leading to a brutal suppression. That killed numerous blood-shrouds. This sparked a vicious cycle of retaliation and bloodshed, a cycle that had only recently quieted. As for the conflict 60 years ago that Vedhan kept referencing, Deucalion dismissed it as simple politics, driven by the discovery of a mana stone mine on blood-shroud territory, a mine the Yuclines themselves had acquired. Vedhan sputtered, outraged that a Yucline would downplay the incident. He insisted the blood-shrouds were inherently demonic, a fact the demon-hunting Yuclines should recognize. Deucalion coolly corrected him. The tradition of the Yucline family, he stated, was to hunt demons, not the Bloodshroud race. Vedhan roared back, insisting they were demons, though Deculian's calm logic seemed to momentarily stun him. Deculian then quietly asked Alan if Vedhan could truly take responsibility for declaring an entire race demonic. Before Alan could respond, Deculian addressed the assembly once more, his voice carrying weight. He warned against declaring humans as demons so nonchalantly, stating that the one who casts such judgment often becomes the very thing they condemn. Vedhan was left speechless and fuming. The discussion reached an impasse, ultimately declared inconclusive and postponed until the next day. As the members dispersed, Gilthian approached his daughter, Sylvia. He lamented the birched rule requiring family members to stay in separate rooms, expressing feigned concern for her being alone. Sylvia, unimpressed, retorted that kids her age normally had separate rooms from their fathers anyway. Gilthian put on a tearful display before bidding her goodnight. He reminded her to read the hotel regulations carefully, cautioning that the high mana density in birched could cause strange magical phenomena at night. Sylvia confidently assured him she would be fine. Later, in her assigned room, Sylvia glanced at the complex, runic script of the hotel regulations. She mused that the rules seemed designed merely to frighten children and decided she could simply sleep peacefully. With her familiar, Swift, perched nearby, she settled into bed. Some time later, she awoke feeling thirsty. Getting out of bed, she walked across the room, but as she approached the mirror, the space around her abruptly warped with crackling purple energy. The very fabric of the room seemed to twist and distort, the floor dissolving into a swirling vortex beneath her feet. Before she could react, the familiar bedroom morphed entirely into a long, unsettling hallway of shifting purple energies. Trapped, she wondered aloud, startled, if she had perhaps done something wrong, before cautiously proceeding into the unknown. Trapped in the disorienting, purple-hued hallway, Sylvia frantically recalled the hotel regulations she had so carelessly dismissed. One particular rule stood out. Once you lie down in bed, refrain from waking until morning, or you may find yourself in a different place. Clutching the now creased paper, she realized her thirst-driven nighttime excursion had triggered this bizarre phenomenon. So, getting out of bed meant she couldn't get back until morning? That seemed unnecessarily harsh. She pondered if the increased mana density, amplified by the gathering of powerful elders for the assembly, was intensifying these magical occurrences compared to her previous, uneventful stay a few days prior. Panic began to set in. She berated herself for her complacency, for assuming safety within her own room. Taking deep breaths, she tried to calm her racing heart. Suddenly, the swirling energies ahead coalesced, hinting at a presence. Something was definitely there. Uncertain where to go in the shifting corridor, she remembered another rule. The Rosary Hotel was strictly a one-story building, and any stairs encountered were illusions to be ignored. Further along, an open doorway pulsed with an eerie light, recalling yet another warning. Do not enter or look inside any open room encountered. She forced herself not to panic, remembering there had to be a door back. She just needed to find it. As she desperately searched, a sudden knocking sound echoed through the hallway. "Help!" she cried out instinctively, before recalling the final, chilling rule. If someone knocks on your door, do not respond or make any noise. Her plea turned into a desperate, silent appeal to anyone, anything, collapsing against a seemingly solid wall in exhaustion and fear. Just as despair threatened to consume her, the wall shimmered and opened into a familiar, warmly lit room. A calm voice asked if she had lost her way. Standing there, bathed in the gentle light, was Professor Deculian. Relief washed over Sylvia, leaving her momentarily speechless and flustered. Deculian simply invited her in, and she mumbled her thanks, stepping gratefully into the safety of his room. Sitting by the crackling fireplace, she apologized, explaining how she had woken up thirsty, left her bed, and abruptly found herself lost in the bizarre hallway. Deculian, looking up briefly from his book, remarked that such incredible magic phenomena were common within Birched, a place filled with spirits who had lost their consciousness to magic. He gently chided her, stating she should have read the rules properly. Sylvia observed him, his unchanging appearance, his unwavering gaze. Was it because he was Deucalion that he could simply open a door that wasn't there for her? Suddenly, a low growl echoed from outside the room. A formless blob of purple energy seeped under the door, rapidly coalescing into a terrifying, spectral skull wreathed in dark energy that lunged towards her. Deucalion, without looking up from his book, commanded her to stay still. Before the specter could reach her, a beam of brilliant cyan light shot from Deucalion's hand, striking the entity dead center. It recoiled, letting out a final, ghostly groan before dissipating completely. Large, crystalline shards materialized in the air where the ghost had been, hovering ominously. Sylvia was amazed. Were those truly roaming ghosts he had just casually dispatched? Deucalion downplayed the event, explaining it was merely a specialized type of magic designed only to kill, something not to be proud of, as magic's original purpose was not destruction. Sylvia fell silent, processing his words. Deucalion then turned his attention back to her, gesturing towards the fireplace, now burning with an unnaturally vibrant, almost liquid flame. He identified it as flowing flame, and she confirmed. He continued, testing her knowledge. Lightning? Good. Metallization? Indeed. Goblin fire? Once again, good job. Sylvia, slightly puffed up but also mildly annoyed that he hadn't even looked directly at her demonstrations, held up a construct of flickering blue energy. She impulsively tried something less refined, a raw burst of power. Deucalion acknowledged she had done well. However, he pointed out a slight instability in the air magic circle she had embedded within the fire. Startled by his perception, Sylvia eagerly asked what her weakness was. Deucalion simply told her she should figure that out herself. Sylvia protested, reminding him he had explicitly told Ephorine hers. Deucalion countered that Ephorine had found her own weakness. Sylvia pouted, momentarily silenced. Deucalion advised her to cease her impatience. Time, he stated, was on her side. Continued dedication would inevitably lead to improvement. She could work towards it slowly, one step at a time. He then added, almost thoughtfully, that she was one of only 3 people in the world possessing such innate talent. The weight of his words struck her. All her life, she had heard variations of the same compliments. Astounding talent. Fated to be an archmage. Bright future. They had always felt like insincere, stale platitudes. But hearing it from Deucalion, why did his words feel different, carrying a weight the others lacked? Under the bright, moonlit sky, Sylvia pondering Deucalion's words as she drifted off to sleep. Deucalion remained awake, reading by the firelight when he paused. A distinct energy signature brushed against his senses. Intrigued, he stepped outside into the cool night air. His unique, wealthy magnate trait, designed to attract valuable items and opportunities, suddenly alerted him. This particular mountain path, largely inaccessible except for the birch meeting, might hold rarer finds than he initially anticipated. As he walked, a translucent, purple, cloaked specter materialized before him. It attempted a ghostly scare tactic, waving its arms and letting out a loud "Boh." The ghost seemed confused by Deucalion's utter lack of reaction. Trying again, "B-O-O, B-O-O," circling him menacingly. Deucalion simply continued walking, completely unfazed, perhaps even a little bored. Did this ghost not realize who was trying to spook? He walked straight through the specter. The ghost, flustered, called after him, asking if he had perhaps seen an item possessing a lot of magic. It then shrieked in apparent frustration or pain and zipped away. Deucalion watched it go, mildly perplexed by its behavior. Then, his gaze caught something glinting on the path where the ghost had been hovering. He stooped to pick it up, a fragment of wood pulsing with faint, fiery energy. His comprehension instantly identified it. A purified mana tree fragment, naturally rich in mana and further purified by a lightning strike, an excellent magical material. This was an unexpected boon. Since arriving in this world, he had trained relentlessly but felt hampered by the original Deculian's mediocre, innate talent. With this fragment, he could potentially craft a wand to accelerate his power growth considerably. This was a far greater gain than he could have hoped for from a simple nighttime stroll. The birched assembly reopened the next day, the atmosphere still thick with the unresolved tension surrounding the Bloodshroud debate. Vedhan, still incensed, continued his argument, questioning how Deculian could deny the Bloodshroud's demonic nature if they possessed demonic energy. Deculian, ever the logician, calmly countered with an analogy, asking if adding salt to water made the resulting solution salt instead of salt water. This pointed, almost condescending comparison left Vedhan sputtering and further solidified the perception among many attendees that Deculian was siding with the perceived enemy. Murmurs spread through the hall. Attendees exchanged confused and suspicious glances, wondering if Deculian, the scion of a demon-hunting family, was truly defending the Bloodshrouds. Gilthian Elade stroked his chin thoughtfully, pondering Deculian's angle, questioning the scheme behind the professor's unexpected stance. Sylvia watched her father and the others, certain they all assumed Deculian harbored some ulterior motive for defending the enemy. But Sylvia believed they were wrong. Deculian wasn't scheming, he was merely stating facts, however inconvenient they might be. Before the argument could escalate further, the elder intervened, declaring that no conclusion would be reached at this rate. The matter concerning the Bloodshrouds was officially tabled, added to the agenda for the next meeting, likely postponing the issue indefinitely. With that contentious point set aside, the elder moved on to the remaining agenda items. Unlike the Bloodshroud debate, these other matters progressed quickly, and after several days, the lengthy birched assembly finally concluded. As the attendees filed out, a still fuming Vedhan deliberately bumped his shoulder against Deculian's, letting out a final, childish humph. Deculian watched him go, reflecting internally. While delaying the Bloodshroud eradication serve as long-term goals related to the future main quest, it seemed he had successfully alienated even more people in the process. The following day, Deculian, accompanied by Alan, ventured into the Birch shopping district. The area bustled with activity, a stark contrast to the tense assembly hall. Deculian browsed a shop filled with magical artifacts and materials, skulls, potions, strange crystals, and more. His objective was clear. He needed to create a new wand using the purified mana tree fragment he'd acquired before leaving Birched. He examined various potential supplementary materials, pondering the best combination for amplifying the fragment's power. Alan suddenly piped up, sounding excited. Deculian turned, asking what the matter was. Alan pointed across the shop, declaring that the person over there was his hero, the one responsible for his safe arrival in Birched. Deculian followed Alan's gaze and saw, to his mild surprise, Lilia Freemian, the vice chief of the Security Bureau, browsing the wares. Deciding it was a necessary courtesy, Deculian invited Lilia to a meal, ostensibly to thank her for ensuring Alan's safety. Seated at a comfortable restaurant table, Lilia accepted his thanks graciously before bringing up the official results of the train incident investigation, acknowledging the potential rudeness of discussing it during a meal. She inquired about the fate of the escort guard, Varen. Deculian confirmed the official story. Varen had died during an ambush. The meal continued uneventfully after the formal exchange. However, Lilia couldn't shake a nagging feeling about Deculian, wondering what exactly set him apart, her thoughts drifting to the captive wizard killer. Lockhart. Elsewhere, within the austere walls of the Imperium Security Bureau headquarters, operating under direct Imperial order, Lilia conducted Lockhart's interrogation. She informed him he would be sent to Lekardak, the most notorious prison, the standard punishment for killing innocent mages. She asked if he had anything to say. Lockhart remained silent, his expression unreadable. Lilia scoffed, remarking on his sudden tight-lipped demeanor during interrogation. Lockhart finally spoke a single word: power. Confused, Lilia demanded he activate it. Lockhart complied, and a faint purple aura flickered around him, culminating in a large, ethereal I'm manifesting briefly in the air. Lilia let out a breath, seemingly testing something. Suddenly, she slammed her fist on the table, her composure shattering as she furiously cursed Lockhart, calling him an idiot. She admonished him for being rash and acting in a way that could negatively affect their kind. Lockhart merely chuckled softly. Lilia admitted she had considered killing him. If his identity as one of them was revealed, the public pressure on her would be immense. Lockhart questioned if leeching off the Empire would even be possible if they were exposed, stating that their kind were seen as different from birth. Lilia snapped back that they weren't born different, just with demonic-like abilities that scared others, retorting that blood shrouds weren't the only ones born with special powers. She then demanded to know why he had provoked Deculian, mentioning they were already keeping an eye on the Yuck lines. Lockhart hesitantly asked if the plan was to kill them. Lilia confirmed that while they were currently just observing, if Deculian continued to cause trouble, they wouldn't hesitate. Lockhart firmly told her not to. He insisted Deculian was a true noble, and there was no need to kill him. Lilia scoffed at the notion, calling it bullshit, and reminding Lockhart she had a tub filled with Deculian's documented crimes. He then revealed the crucial detail. Deculian hadn't killed him, even though he knew Lockhart was a blood shroud. Lilia was momentarily stunned, questioning if Lockhart wasn't aware that the Eucline ancestors spearheaded the slaughter and oppression of the blood shrouds. Lockhart replied he was aware, but argued that treating the descendants the same way only validated the ancestors' notion of them being demons. Lilia seethed, exasperated by his logic. Lockhart turned the tables, questioning how long Lilia thought she could maintain her position of power without being caught. She confidently replied that distinguishing between blood shrouds and humans based on appearance and blood was impossible. She'd managed her entire life. Lockhart reminded her there was a specific food they couldn't eat. Lilia simply stated she avoided eating it. Changing the subject, Lockhart mentioned the Emperor's failing health and the need to observe how the successor would treat the blood shrouds. Until then, they needed to stay quiet. Lilia instructed him to lay low in Lecherdak prison. Back at the restaurant, Lilia internally scoffed at Lockhart's true noble assessment. Deculian was just the same annoying guy as always, in her opinion. As somebody approached, the lingering smell of alcohol from a nearby patron made her grimace. Deculian asked if she needed anything else, stating he didn't have much more to say. Just then, another figure approached their table, a helm, wearing a smug grin. He announced he had something he wanted to hear from Deculian, something from his dark soul. Simultaneously, at the headquarters of the Order of Phryam, Julie received a report. A subordinate hesitantly informed her Varen had died during the mission. Julie's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with cold fury. She ordered her subordinate to prepare immediately. She needed an explanation from Deculian the moment he returned. The relative peace of the meal was shattered by the arrival of a helm, Von Jirian Rewind. Lilia recognized the current head of the Rewind family immediately, wondering with slight annoyance at the sudden intrusion. A helm, with his characteristic smugness, addressed Deculian directly, expressing how Deculian's stance during the assembly had thoroughly caught him off guard. He couldn't fathom why Deculian, usually so cautious regarding other magic families, would take such a position, pressing the point relentlessly. He cut straight to the heart of the matter, bluntly asking if Deculian was now siding with the blood shrouds. The question hung heavy in the air, causing Lilia's eyes to widen in surprise. Helm didn't wait for an answer, reminding Deculian of his past, well-documented statements advocating for the annihilation of the blood shrouds, recalling Deculian's prior assertions that such lowly species didn't deserve to live. He inquired if the paper Deculian wrote condemning the blood shrouds was still filed away at the university archives. Helm leaned in conspiratorially, suggesting with a sneer that perhaps Deculian had acquired a blood shroud slave for research purposes. Before Deculian could respond, Alan leaped to his feet, furiously denouncing Helm's insolence and demanding he stop insulting the professor. Deucalion calmly gestured for Alan to settle down, assuring him it was fine while delicately wiping his mouth with a napkin. He then looked at Helm, stating with cool condescension that such a line of thought, akin to rotten cheese, was entirely expected coming from him, a sentiment he could understand. To everyone's surprise, Helm just smirked and agreed with a simple affirmation. Changing tactics, Helm brought up the upcoming research presentation, questioning whether it was 6 or 3 months away, and issued a challenge. Wanted to see if Deucalion's recent talk was merely for show or if he had actual substance to back it up. With that parting shot, Helm turned and left the restaurant, leaving a thoughtful silence in his wake. Lilia watched him go, her mind racing. Deucalion seemed wary of everyone else, yet he was apparently defending the blood shrouds. It was difficult to reconcile this with the man she knew, or thought she knew. Lockhart's words echoed in her mind. The claim that Deucalion was a true noble, the fact that he had spared the blood shroud's life. Could Lockhart possibly have been telling the truth? The next day, before departing Birched, Deucalion visited one of the best-named craftsmen in the district, commissioning a wand incorporating the purified mana tree fragment. Upon completion, a system notification unexpectedly popped up. Subquest complete. Rockaloc's wand. Apparently, several conditions had been met. Sufficient fame or infamy, being perceived as kind-hearted or reformed, a laughable notion, Deucalion thought. Providing top-quality materials that piqued the craftsman's interest and making at least 2 prior visits. The reward was store currency and the expertly crafted wand. Deucalion surmised that the famous craftsman's willingness and the quest completion were likely due to the original Deucalion's past interactions, an unforeseen benefit from a life he barely remembered. The train journey back to the Empire began. By chance, Deucalion and Alan found themselves sharing a carriage with Vedhan. The head of the Virad family didn't bother hiding his hostility, practically radiating fiery indignation, but thankfully, no actual conflict erupted during the ride. Deucalion simply focused on his book, relieved that this long, taxing trip was finally nearing its end. They arrived at the bustling, snow-dusted station in the Empire. Alan stretched dramatically, letting out a loud yawn. He reminded the professor that they had 1 train transfer left, looking forward to finally seeing scenery that wasn't just endless white snow. As they navigated the crowded platform towards their connection, they were intercepted by a familiar, imposing figure clad in white armor, flanked by knights. It was Julie. She approached Deucalion formally, stating she had heard about the ambush and expressing relief that he was safe. Deucalion offered a curt thank you, assuming she had received the official, sanitized version of events involving Varen. He couldn't miss the glares from her accompanying knights, their expressions clearly questioning why he was the only one who had survived the incident. Julie continued, mentioning she had read the news reports which claimed he and Varen had worked together to save the victims. Deucalion remained silent, offering no confirmation or denial. Julie hesitated, then finally voiced the question weighing on her mind, asking him something directly. How was Varen in his final moments? Their eyes met for a brief, tense moment before Deucalion looked away. Internally, Deucalion wrestled with himself. He had fully intended to tell her everything. The truth about Varen's betrayal, the desperate fight that ended with Varen's death. But now, standing before her, seeing the earnest concern beneath the knightly composure, he found the words caught in his throat. Should he tell her the truth? He knew Julie's conviction was strong, but her heart wasn't ironclad. She possessed a deep sense of responsibility. If she learned the truth, she would undoubtedly blame herself, taking Varen's misguided actions upon herself and descending into severe self-torment. He concluded, with a heavy heart, that the right course of action, the kindest one for her, was silence. He would not tell Julie the truth, even if it meant facing the suspicion and ire of others. A conductor's voice echoed through the station, announcing the imminent departure of the 4th train heading deeper into the Empire, urging ticketed passengers to board. Deucalion and Alan headed towards the gate. As he walked away, Deucalion finally answered Julie's earlier question. his voice low. It was difficult to say, he murmured, only that Varen had been emotional. Julie watched him go, her expression unreadable. She offered a quiet thank you, stating they would go see Varen now, and wishing Deucalion a comfortable rest. She turned and led her knights away. Deucalion felt a pang of something unfamiliar, a lingering echo of the original Deucalion's feelings, recognizing a shared inability to navigate such fraught emotional territory. Alan grumbled beside him about the knights' rudeness, pointing out that they were victims too, yet had been treated with distaste. Deucalion simply called them foolish, before turning a curious gaze on his assistant, asking why he had held back earlier. Before Alan could answer, another voice interrupted. Sylvia stood before them asking what exactly Deucalion meant by hold back. Deucalion feigned ignorance. Then she presented him with a book, calling it a gift. Deucalion took it, looking perplexed, as she turned and walked away briskly. Alan asked what the book was, but Deucalion simply replied that he did not know. Everything felt exhausting, even these final interactions. All Deucalion wanted was to get home and rest. He urged Alan to make haste, and together they boarded the final train. Julie received the official report detailing the ambush. It stated Sir Varen fell during the second attack, while Professor Deucalion miraculously survived the VIP car hanging by the cliff. The summary concluded both men tried their best, but Varen perished. An official offered condolences. Julie stood stoically with her attendants. She inquired about keepsakes, receiving none, and was reminded that investigating crimes on the way to Birched was against unwritten law. She walked to the cliff's edge, mourning the loss of her reliable right arm, Varen, lamenting his vain death. She cursed him softly, calling him a foolish bastard. Back at the Yahello mansion, Uriel confronted Deucalion furiously, demanding to know if he'd written another large family check. An attendant tried to calm her, but she raged about their precarious financial situation, yelling they wouldn't last 2 months at this rate. Deucalion realized the wand creation fee was unexpectedly high, confirming Uriel's dire assessment. Action was needed. He calmly told Uriel to wait, revealing he had a way to secure more funds. He led her to the mansion's storage area, filled with valuable artifacts. Uriel questioned his actions, reminding him these were items he'd bought merely to flaunt wealth. Deucalion told her to hold on, also advising her to speak more like the next family head. Uriel retorted, asking how he could nag her when he bankrupted them. Deucalion reflected on his initial ignorance. He hadn't understood why the auction items radiated the wealthy magnate energy, thinking them mere art. Only recently, preparing for Birched, had he realized their potential to increase wealth. He activated his skill, Midas Touch. Uriel stared, asking why he was standing there like a moron with his hand out. Deucalion ignored her, announcing he would put the items up for auction again and instructed Roy to call an appraiser. Uriel exploded, questioning why he'd sell antiques so soon, predicting they wouldn't fetch half their price, calling him a money-wasting idiot. Deucalion calmly ordered Roy to proceed. He observed a specific vase, now imbued with golden light. Its description updated. Vase of the Eastern Master Craftsman, potential awakened by Midas Touch, granting special effects like preventing flowers from wilting and transforming them into fatigue-recovering petals. A vase once worth 2.5 million eln was now priceless, an item he suddenly didn't want to sell. He instructed the staff to handle the items with care. Uriel continued her frantic questioning, asking if he truly planned to bankrupt them. But Deucalion simply stated it was time for him to work, leaving her screaming in frustration. Meanwhile, at the university's Magic Tower, in the Magic Exploration Club room, Ephorine and her clubmates were playing cards. Ephorine slammed down her cards, revealing a full house with kings. Her friends reacted with disbelief. She had won 3 rounds already, earning exemption from cleaning duty for a week. Others lamented their near wins, but Ephorine smugly called it an excuse for losers. She laughed, feeling like she was in a dream. Ever since entering the tower, she'd faced constant hatred, etched on her door, not just from students, but even professors who disliked commoners. There had been countless incidents. But now, she was in a club with friends. She genuinely liked this ordinary club. One friend reminded her to watch what she said, calling them superficially normal, just as the door burst open. An unfamiliar professor stormed in, demanding to know what the hell this club was doing. Professor Reelan, accompanied by Professor Beck, sneered that these low-class commoners were taking up space with pointless activities. Ephraim recognized the two professors notorious for making issues concerning commoners. Reelan scoffed at the club's name, OMDC, calling it ridiculous. Ephraim, though unwelcome, expected this confrontation and resolved to handle it honorably. She stood, stating they submitted a plan and received permission, declaring them an official club. Reelan reacted with outrage, demanding to know who allowed such a stupid club. He then recognized Ephraim, calling her the lowlife punished before. The insult struck a nerve, again with the lowlife comments. Reelan mocked her arrogant glare. Another club member nervously tried to intervene, but Reelan commanded Ephraim to avert her eyes. Assistant Professor Crane peeked nervously from the doorway. Reelan, confident no professor would approve such a club, demanded she reveal their sponsor. Ephraim hesitated. Reelan gloated, certain he was right. A calm voice cut through the tension from behind him. It was me. Deucalion stood there, confirming he allowed it and coolly asking Professor Reelan if he had any complaints. Ephraim stared, stunned. Deucalion's sharp gaze was unwavering. He calmly repeated that he allowed the club, directly asking Professor Reelan if he had any complaints. Deucalion then addressed the stunned students. Mentioning he'd heard Reelan calling for him down the hall, Reelan defensively retorted about needing permission. Internally, Deucalion sighed, having just dealt with Uriel's financial panic only to face Reelan's complaining immediately upon arriving at work. Noticing Reelan sweating profusely, Deucalion loomed slightly, his presence intensifying. The flustered professor quickly stammered that wasn't what he meant. Displaying Olympic-level backpedaling, Reelan hastily commented on the club room's emptiness, suggesting the tower's mages deserved better equipment, and claiming his earlier anger stemmed from this unfortunate state. He then volunteered to take responsibility for furnishing the room properly, seeking Deucalion's approval. Deucalion drily acknowledged Reelan's apparent kindness, agreeing the room did look shabby, which Reelan eagerly seized upon, promising again to handle it. Reelan and a nervous Professor Beck then beat a hasty retreat. Deucalion internally scoffed. Cockroaches would always act like cockroaches. He excused himself formally to the students and departed, leaving Professor Beck standing stiffly behind. Sunlight streamed through a nearby window. Later, in his lecture hall, students murmured about Professor Deucalion's return from Birched and the mysterious events that transpired there. Sylvia recalled reading about the chaotic train incident in the Wizard Journal. Their speculations ceased as Deucalion silenced the room with a tap on his desk. Announcing the start of the lecture, he stated the day's topic was pure elements and magic interference, explaining interference as one mage disrupting another's magic. Before delving into theory, however, he declared a practical exercise. Alan brought forward a box. Deucalion telekinetically lifted a shimmering shard, revealing the box contained numerous glowing blue magic stones. He distributed one stone to hover before each student, causing surprise among the class. Sylvia examined hers closely, while Ephraim looked utterly astonished. Deucalion explained these were valuable magic stones, worth 3,000 eln each. He declared he would only use telekinesis to control his stone. Their task was to interfere with his magic and claim it. Crucially, he added, they could keep any stone they successfully took. Ephraim's eyes practically turned into eln symbols, requiring a classmate to stifle her excited gasp. Deucalion then noted that blocking interference was just as critical, demonstrating a defensive telekinetic shield around his own stone, stating defense was often more advantageous. The students mirrored his action, attempting to shield their own stones. Deucalion reflected on needing more practice with telekinesis, despite having used a beginner-level version to halt the train. He felt a flicker of curiosity about how his power would fare against 150 debutante mages, especially since this class housed the university's most talented prospects. Ephraim, while grateful for the valuable stone considering her drained scholarship funds, focused intently. Sylvia observed the others, her expression serious. She noted Ephraim's self-taught background. Both girls radiated determination, refusing to be outperformed. Elsewhere, students struggled, straining against Decilian's control, some even suffering nosebleeds from the exertion. One student murmured in awe at the professor's stability, noting their complete inability to interfere. Decilian, however, was inwardly flustered, surprised that even these talented debutantes couldn't disrupt his magic despite their visible, strenuous efforts. He refocused his control. Sylvia breathed heavily, concentrating intensely on her stone, as Ephraim strained nearby. Sweat beaded on Sylvia's brow. Suddenly, Decilian announced Sylvia had achieved first place. She gave a curt nod, accepting the result. Decilian had predicted her success. He scanned the room for others, most students groaning in defeat. Seeing none initially, he then noticed movement. Ephraim, looking utterly drained but triumphant, had managed to grasp her magic stone, raggedly celebrating her newly acquired 3,000 elm. Sylvia glanced over, a hint of surprise or perhaps irritation on her face. The remaining students struggled futilely against Decilian's telekinesis. Finally, he commanded them to stop. Some collapsed, utterly drained, while others retched from the exertion. Decilian, pinching the bridge of his nose, declared their performance pathetic before announcing a break, instructing them to clean up their mess. Students shuffled out or slumped in their seats. Ephraim's friend, Julie, slumped over her desk, asking how Ephraim managed it, as she couldn't succeed no matter how hard she tried. Ephraim, equally exhausted with a bleeding nose and numb tongue, admitted she nearly died too. Yet, she mentioned having an epiphany, a sudden moment of clarity. She explained that while she didn't know much about telekinesis, attempting to break through Decilian's magic felt like shattering something unseen. Julie expressed jealousy at Ephraim's breakthrough. Nearby, Sylvia processed this outcome with disbelief. It seemed impossible. How could Ephraim, previously ranked lowest, suddenly achieve second place without special consideration? The rumors about Decilian secretly tutoring Ephraim must have been true. Sylvia wondered if Decilian had lied to her earlier. Watching Ephraim fondly caress the magic stone, Sylvia inwardly scoffed, questioning what was so special about that half-wit and dismissing Ephraim as arrogant. After the break, the lecture hall was tidier. Decilian addressed the class, commending their effort in the warm-up practical. However, he revealed there was an easier method to counter his telekinesis, suggesting the successful students might already grasp it. He introduced the concept of mana interference. Unlike simply blocking demonstrated magic, this advanced technique involved understanding the opponent's spell structure and disrupting its core magic circle. A student noted its limitation. Mana interference required extensive knowledge of magic circles. Decilian confirmed this, explaining it typically only worked on magic familiar to the user and wasn't generally recommended. Barriers or countermagic were more common defenses. Still, he emphasized the value of understanding the principle. No pain, no gain, as they say. The crux, he explained, was identifying the magic circle's central circuit, which varied based on magic type and element. Understanding the opponent's central circuit allowed for direct interference. Familiarity with mana interference would naturally make disrupting magic easier. Decilian then began demonstrating how to identify central circuits, starting with the Storm Blade All Magic Circle, noting destructive types featured circuits designed for internal combustion. The students took diligent notes. 2 hours passed swiftly. Decilian glanced at the clock, noting time was up despite having more content. He abruptly concluded the lecture, stating they had wasted his time earlier, so they should have no complaints. He instructed them to review the remaining material independently. He reminded them of the upcoming midterms and a preceding open practical, stressing the importance of mastering mana interference. With a curt goodbye, he departed, leaving the students stunned. One student complained about the abrupt ending, comparing it to the unsatisfying feeling of stopping mid-poop. Ephraim agreed, stretching stiffly. She reiterated feeling like she'd had an epiphany, though it was hard to articulate. Just then, Professor Beck appeared, calling out to Ephraim, the rep of commoners. Julie immediately confronted Beck, asking why he was starting trouble again, reminding him he'd brought Professor Real in earlier and seemed eager to pick fights recently. Beck sneered, attributing it to the commoners showing off too much and demanding to know how Ephraim jumped from last place to second. Ephraim scoffed, initially deciding not to engage. But Beck pressed, suggesting she must have bribed Decilion since she lacked wealth or connections. Ephraim snapped, asking what he just said. Beck smugly replied it was true, claiming everyone knew she was getting private lessons. Sylvia listened silently, denying Beck's claim internally. Ephraim challenged Beck to explain her sudden improvement if not for tutoring, pointing out she wasn't even an academy graduate. Beck mockingly suggested Decilion went easy on her, wanting to gift her the stone, perhaps out of pity since she had no home or parents. Green mana flared around Ephraim as she gritted her teeth, warning Beck not to say another word. Beck challenged her to act, daring her to say it. Sylvia watched the escalating tension. Ephraim's hand clenched Beck's coat, but Julie intervened, urging Ephraim to let go, reminding her of the risk of being punished again. Ephraim recalled Decilion's earlier words about mages needing to remain cold, slowly releasing her grip. She thanked Julie, admitting she got worked up, and then dismissed Beck, saying she went crazy trying to converse with an idiot. Beck stood speechless as Ephraim turned away. Ephraim suggested getting food with Julie, and the two left, leaving Beck fuming and Julie calling after them. Sylvia remained, observing the scene. Outside the university building, Ephraim stomped angrily, admitting Julie's intervention stopped her, but wondering how to deal with the elitist bastard Beck. She felt furious, barely able to restrain herself. How could she handle such an elitist? Suddenly, she noticed Sylvia standing nearby. Sylvia quietly asked if they could talk. Sylvia proposed a quick talk. Ephraim eyed her suspiciously, wondering about the sudden approach and warning Sylvia off if she intended to fight. Sylvia cut straight to the point, asking if Decilion was tutoring her. An invisible rage-o-meter ticked above Ephraim's head. She exploded, demanding if Sylvia was picking another fight and questioning the absurdity of the idea, given their terrible relationship. Did Sylvia approach just to spout nonsense? Everyone seemed determined to pick a fight with her today, yet Sylvia seemed convinced. Sylvia remained impassive, simply stating whatever, which only further agitated Ephraim. Then, Sylvia dropped a piece of information. Decilion hadn't stepped foot in a lab for 3 years, not since Ephraim's father passed away. Ephraim scoffed dismissively, remarking that of course he hadn't. Decilion was useless without her genius father. Sylvia countered, asking if Ephraim knew, then, that Decilion had been visiting the lab daily for the past 3 months. He had cleaned it, chosen an assistant, and brought in new equipment. Sylvia asked what Ephraim thought that meant. A horrifying possibility dawned on Ephraim. No way. Was he planning to exploit her father's research again? But surely Decilion wasn't capable of continuing it himself? Her fist clenched tightly. Ephraim questioned how Sylvia would even know if he was trying something, dismissing it as typical Professor Decilion behavior, but then asked what it had to do with her. Sylvia gave a slight, knowing smile. She merely thought Ephraim didn't know, and seeing her reaction was enough. With that, Sylvia turned and walked away, leaving Ephraim staring after her, deeply unsettled. Several days later, the magnificent university tower gleamed under a bright sky. It was the day of the next lecture, the open practical. Students gathered outside, murmuring amongst themselves. Ephraim and Julie wondered why a practical was being held in such an open area and what Deucalion was planning. Suddenly, Ephraim flinched, spotting Professor Beck nearby. Julie quickly restrained her, reminding her to be the bigger person and let it go, calling Beck that bastard again. Deucalion's arrival commanded silence. The lecture had begun. He reminded them that today was the final practical before midterms. With a flourish of his hand, the scene shifted, revealing a large, open arena packed with spectators. Today's lecture, he announced, would be a public practical. Ephraim and Julie stared, awestruck by the sheer number of people. Deucalion explained they would demonstrate magic combat before the audience. They were to fight using any magic they could manifest, ensuring at least 3 forms of pure elemental magic were utilized. He clarified that winning or losing didn't matter. He would focus on the fight itself, observing their strengths and weaknesses to provide feedback for improvement. Professor Reelan, standing nearby, would supervise to prevent injury, meaning no restrictions would be placed, a duty Reelan accepted eagerly. Deucalion began the class, calling the first student, Rosen, who nervously stepped forward to choose an opponent. 2 students took their places in the arena. Deucalion declared the match's start. The magic duels progressed smoothly, with students leaping and casting various spells. Deucalion observed intently, clipboard in hand, while Reelan flinched nervously at the powerful displays. Though initially awkward, the students soon focused, unleashing their magic with growing confidence. Soon, Sylvia stood victorious over her defeated opponent. Beck and another student snickered nearby, mocking the losing commoner, suggesting they'd be better off cleaning gardens. Ephraim glared, calling them cruel bastards, though admitting Sylvia was indeed strong. She shouted encouragement to the retreating student, Parrot. Deucalion then called Beck's name. Beck stepped forward confidently, his choice immediate and malicious, Ephraim. Ephraim grimaced. This was probably for the better. They faced each other in the arena. Beck taunted her, asking if she'd be okay without her secret tutor. Ephraim retorted, tired of his bullshit, asking if trash talk was basic manners for him. She added that he looked lame, trying to copy Deucalion's style. Green energy flared around Ephraim. She'd show him his magic was lame too. Enraged, Beck demanded to know what the vermin just said. Beck powered up, vowing to help her meet her parents with a blast of golden energy. The attack shot towards Ephraim, causing shouts of concern from the crowd. Beck sneered, calling her a dumbass. But his magic faltered, disrupted by Ephraim's interference. Ephraim smirked, stating an old saying came to mind when dealing with nobles like him. A good beating perfectly suits a noble. A massive fist made of green mana slammed into Beck, launching him spectacularly into the air like he'd been yeeted into orbit. Julie cheered Ephraim on, adding that no such saying actually existed. Beck crashed back to earth, groaning, dazed and confused. Ephraim stood over him, asking how it felt to be destroyed by her. Beck could only manage a curse about the lucky commoner as the win was declared for Ephraim. Ephraim approached Deucalion, complaining the fight finished too quickly because her idiotic opponent couldn't even hold his ground, thus failing to provide a proper show for the spectators. She asked the professor for one more chance. She explained that the practical required using 3 types of pure elemental magic, but her opponent was so weak she only needed 1 spell to finish it instantly. Deucalion conceded her point. It was illogical to end her evaluation like this due to her opponent's weakness. He agreed, allowing her to choose anyone present. Ephraim turned, a determined glint in her eyes as she pointed directly at Deucalion, declaring she wanted to fight him.